Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 221. I am Peter and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And Connor's here too.
Yes, I am.
Drinking booze. As he
it's an old-fashioned. I decided to try the Gerrard's thing.
There you go.
Where I did the lemon peel instead of orange to see. I usually use orange, so I'll see how it goes. And also, I'm much more likely to juice the lemons and use them in a different cocktail than I am the oranges, so less waste.
That was fascinating. Here's a comic book podcast, DC Comics specifically, and coming up on this week's show. We have Batman 3 Jokers issue 2, Dark Knight's Death Metal Multiverse's End issue 1, Batman the Joker Warzone issue 1, Wonder Woman 763, Legion of Superheroes issue 9, Justice League Annual number 2, Batman Superman Annual number 1, and then a batch of Patreon books between me and Connor to round out the month. So that is the gist.
Real quick, Pete, did you read Legion?
I did not know.
Okay, it's all on me then. That's fine. I still read it because there was buzz going around on Tuesday, which I was able to steer clear of till Wednesday. So yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you being the sole Legion reader on the show.
It is when it's a Bendis book, and there's a lot that's very dense. For one-page layouts, it's very dense.
Yeah, what does me reading it have to do with the time you spend on
stuff
it?
Off, you know.
You just have to fly it alone and
Yep.
learn to
So I get for
not fall or something.
for defining myself as the Legion guy.
That's what you get.
Guess.
Yeah, imagine if you drop, after all those years of Long Live the Legion, imagine if you drop Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, I know. It's unlikely to happen. Nah, it's not likely to happen.
I don't know, controversy, that's all. Yeah, so, you know, we're actually just tipping into October, of course, by the time we record this show, although it's officially the last episode of September in our minds, as it always is when it comes to the release weeks. So, week 5, juicier than normal. It's been a busy, weird week of a bunch of things, not necessarily comic book related, admittedly. I'm still shaken with that heel Billy Mitchell showing up on AEW Dynamite. How dare they put Billy Mitchell in front of me?
It's the worst man with the best man.
Carlo, you know who Billy Mitchell is. I'm not alienating you that much.
Yeah. And I was like, why are you starting talking about Billy Mitchell? And then you started talking about wrestling. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'll be honest.
He showed up playing an arcade game against Miro, or with Miro. So now it's led speculation that this whole build-up with him isn't just a get back at WWE for their Twitch BS, poke fun at them, but it's also to announce the AEW game.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, it's just, that all that Twitch thing. I mean, Vince McMahon's just this evil bastard who is insisting his employees, who are not employees, they're independent contractors, can't use Twitch without him giving him a cut of their earnings.
They're only independent contractors when healthcare is involved.
Yes.
Anything else, they're employees, and it's just it makes it hard. So I am kind of grateful I don't watch that product anymore as much. That said, I'm missing the G1 for the first time in like 4 years, just because it's at a time where I don't have time to watch it. So it's all AEW right now. Yeah, for anyone who's confused as to who Billy Mitchell is, because I wasn't trying to bring up this to talk about wrestling, although Matt is determined to shift it into as much wrestling as he possibly can. That's it. I just want to bring up that I don't watch the G1, and it's sad.
Yeah, Billy Mitchell is the villain from a documentary called The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, which came out, I think, in 2007-ish, and it's an interesting little watch. So all I'm saying is if Steve Weeb does not show up and powerbomb Billy Mitchell through a table, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, or if he does do it, it's just on a tape that, is a bit dodgy.
Yeah, Twin Galaxies can't confirm or deny if the table broke. Yes.
I remember watching that and being so mad at him.
I know. He's the biggest heel on the planet.
And I don't even care about arcade gaming that much. I believe in justice and fairness. It wasn't. It made me so mad.
Yeah. So yeah, Billy Mitchell showed up this week randomly. That was the what the F moment of the week. I felt. Unless Carter's got one that he wants to share.
No, I mean, it's definitely not wrestling related. The only wrestling related thing I even saw this week was an old clip from I don't know, some wrestling show years ago with like, look at these random trio of guests that were in the crowd. It was like Chris Tarrant and
that's
a couple
weird.
others, and I was like, this is a weird combination
Well,
of people.
I said WTF, but I didn't mean specifically wrestling related. I just meant in general. But
I mean,
he found something wrestling related. I didn't mean that to happen, but he did.
I'll be honest, I wasn't listening to everything else you were saying, and then you were like, "Oh, it's Conor anything?" I was like, no.
I did not expect a wrestling story from Connor, but there you go.
For whatever reason, that popped up on my Twitter like 4 times this week. This video, the 3 of them in the crowd, like together, and I'm like, I don't know why all of a sudden.
Yeah.
All right. Well, weird. So here we are. Atomic Comics. There is some news.
There's not a lot of news. Is there a lot of news?
Well, there's not a lot, but there's some news.
There's a handful of stories.
Yeah. Just wishful thinking on Matt's part, apparently, but no, there's some...
he just never thought to actually check beforehand. It was like, there can't be any news because we didn't mention news.
No, there's some tidbits of news to talk about. It's some small announcements and delays and things like that. First up, Wonder Woman Earth 1, Volume 3.
Volume 3.
Is what I meant to say there. Has a release date now. It's coming out in March 2021, March 9th to be specific. There you go. That's your story.
Yeah, it's still Paquette on art alongside Morrison. So
that'll be Morrison's last thing now.
For now, this was always been a trilogy anyway. I think that so this is the conclusion to that.
Well, speaking of Grant Morrison, because there's another story about him in DC this week, and this one's funny to me because I'd forgotten this was even a thing. But apparently, the Arkham Asylum sequel, Grant Morrison has officially shelved it. And it's been so long since they announced that he was writing a sequel to Arkham Asylum that I was like, oh yeah, that existed. Okay, so...
What, 2017?
It's basically a non-announcement because it was gone so long out of our mindscapes that we'd all forgotten it existed. So this is basically just, hey, you expected this never to show up? Now I'm telling you, it's probably never showing up.
I feel like this was announced at the same time where they announced that whole slate of Earth 1 books again. I think it was that same panel, where we learned about the Green Lantern one for the first time and a couple of others. It was just all these books that we were like, yeah, we'll believe it when we see it. So we were all skeptical about all of it anyway. And this one in particular, because it wasn't Dave McKean on art, and it was Chris Burnham, which obviously makes sense in the context of Morrison's Batman run. But it makes less sense in the context of Arkham Asylum.
Yeah. Don't expect to see that anytime soon, if ever. Wait, Riley. So that was the two Morrison.
He did say though he has written some of it, and it's only because he got busy with TV that he's shelved it. And he does like what he's written, so it may come back to it at some point. So maybe one day.
Maybe. I ain't holding my breath. I'll forget it exists again, and then
that's probably a good idea.
Maybe it'll surprise us one day. The final issue of Amethyst has been pushed back now a total of 9 weeks. For
it's getting the Shazam treatment.
No, this is more like the Doom Patrol treatment, the Jared Way one. No, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and this is a bit different to Shazam because it's not going to be like 6 artists because it's all just one writer artist on the whole book.
Right.
Amy Reeder, I believe, has been doing the whole thing. I think this one it feels a little worse because it missed a good few months earlier in the year with everything else, so there was an expectation maybe that it would be on track for everything else because I think it only had like 1 or 2 issues before those delays started happening. So yeah, it's a shame.
It was meant to be
on make a great trade.
It was meant to be out on September 22nd. It's now coming November 24th. So hopefully it hits that date now at least, and people who are enjoying it can get their final issue. And then the last thing I've got here is that there's going to be an audio drama coming to Spotify. DC and Spotify are teaming up. And David S. Goyer is going to be the one to write said audio drama.
Yeah, it's worth noting this is the first of many audio dramas because we got this deal announced sometime last year or maybe earlier this year that they had this partnership with Spotify now and they were going to be doing a whole slate of things over the next couple of years. So I doubt Goyer will be involved in all of them.
Oh, no, probably.
All I know is it's hard to have a bunch of destruction just in audio, so that's a bright sign.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the Foley guy will get a workout.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I always feel like Goyer always gets almost gets a pass because he still is responsible for Man of Steel, but he also worked with Nolan.
He's
And I
got
like the Nolan
a very
movies.
mixed career overall. That he's
Yeah.
got some great stuff in his in his catalog, but then some real shite too.
And then Blade Trinity. Which the best thing to come out of that are Patton Oswalt stories of on set and whatnot, and basically Ryan Reynolds being an all-star, getting to work, have to work around Snipes. So, but yeah, Goyer. But again, he also did JSA with Jaun, so
yeah,
it's
I'm
weird.
still tentatively excited for this. I loved the Sandman one that we got on Audible. If you haven't checked that out, you should. It's basically a very direct adaptation of the first 20 or so issues. It's fantastic. I'm hoping these that Marvel have kind of got a bit of a head start in this area. They've had a few with Stitcher, and they've got another one with someone else now that I haven't listened to yet. They had a couple of Wolverine ones by Ben Percy. They've had some Black Widow ones lately, which I haven't checked out because those are exclusive somewhere else. The Wolverine ones were exclusive for 3 months and then went free, but the other ones haven't yet, I don't think. But I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah. So that's all I had, unless there was any other news that I've missed that Connor's going to spring on us.
No, that was pretty much it. Honestly, I had assumed you weren't going to mention the audio dramas because usually you just don't bother with those.
I saw it when I was browsing.
And you knew I was going to bring it up anyway, so you thought you might as well.
I thought I'll throw it in. I'll be nice and toss it in the mix. Yeah, that's basically it. Busy. But again, we had so much news in the first couple of weeks of the month that it's not surprising that the last couple have been very quiet news-wise. And I suspect that to be the same until about Solicit's time in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, there is some stuff about the future. What's it called? Future Shock. That's happening in January, February.
Future State.
Future
State. There we go. And it's not a reboot, but it is a, refresh. And it's also, this seems to be the reason why stuff's ending in, which we talked about. But now there's an actual branding to it. So that's interesting.
I'm sure we're guaranteed more info in the next solicits because obviously they're due to start coming out in February, right?
Yeah, I'm just shocked they didn't use Fandom Part 2 to announce a bunch of stuff, but whatever. If they don't want to do it, then so on them.
Yeah, I really do think it was just a case of it was too late and they didn't want to announce it that far out for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess. But hey, that means Solicit should be juicy in a couple of weeks. So I ain't complaining. I like nice juicy Solicits. So and you can put that. You can quote me on that. Put that in a quotation somewhere. I like juicy Solicits.
Do it, DC. Put that on DC Connect.
Where you're promoting the next Solicits, make it an event and put in some quotes from various YouTubers and reviewers and podcasters and put, I like a juicy Solicits. Peter, call it from Multiverse.
I like a juicy ... Solicit.
I feel like it might, if you say solicitation, it might even work better.
It might sound dodgier.
Yeah, but in this context, that's what you want.
So I guess without further ado, we will dive into the relatively meaty books for a fifth week. At least meaty in the sense that they're all a bit bigger. They're all a bit, dare I say, juicier. So let's dive into Batman 3 Jokers issue 2. Geoff Johns writing, Jason Fabok on the art. And this, of course, is the mystery. We have one Joker who's dead already. Jason shot him last issue. And this issue is Babs trying to talk to Batman about that happening, how to solve the issue, find Jason, stop him from killing any more, find the other 2 Jokers, and so on. And it goes places for sure. So, how did we feel about this?
It definitely feels like the middle chapter of a miniseries, like issues 3 and 4. There's a bit of a lull before it builds back up. So, and that's by design, so you can't be too mad. I will say that for as much as I love Johns and I could be described as a Johns fanboy, Fabok is really the one that's pulling the weight.
Heavy lifting.
In this one, because this there wasn't a lot of reading in this one. There was a lot of action stuff, and it's Fabok taking care of that. And I dare say it's Gary Frank-esque in some parts.
Oh, as we said that in issue one.
We said on the first issue.
Yeah, but like to do that over 6 issues, I was skeptical. But to now see it, I say 6. I'm talking page count. There's only 3, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, to do that over this many pages and to keep it makes sense why this took so long, I guess. But yeah, Fabok really shines here.
I'll agree with that.
And the story, like, again, I don't want to say I'm frustrated because this is the middle section, right? Like, but there's not a lot that happens here that moves the story forward. Like, there's a couple things, and there's some stuff I like, but there's other stuff that I wish we've gotten enough of this.
I like the opening. This whole scenario where Joker 2 comes to this house. He's got a wife and a kid, and the wife's scared of him. The kid's scared of him. And he's, come and, have dinner with daddy and all that stuff. And then, then it sort of snaps into reality, and the criminal Joker number 1, is like, what the hell are you doing? Who are you talking to? I kind of like this exploration of the delusional mind of the Joker a little bit.
This is the comedian Joker.
Yeah, the idea that he fantasizes about having a family that's scared of him is like delightfully twisted.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Killing Joke Joker. That in that origin, his wife, what does she miscarry the kid? Can't have a kid. I can't remember which one.
Something along those lines.
But along those lines, and and if we're believing his telling of the story, this is what kind of leads him to becoming the Joker. Being the sad comedian. So I do like that they referenced that in there. That deep down he does want this family, but it's not. It's still dark and twisted. It actually kind of reminded me of something from David Lynch, a little bit. Like
that's just because he's feeding them octopus.
That could be, maybe, right? He likes the tentacles. But no, that was good. But yeah, I can't get a read on the criminal Joker. Like, I don't know, because I'm so used to Joker being so bombastic, and he's so reserved. Like it's
very
it's
subdued.
a bit off. Yeah,
he's your grandfather's Joker, I suppose.
No, literally, like this is what Joker was before.
He says before Batman.
Mm-hmm.
He claims. Yeah, he claims to be.
He claims, which take that as you will. I'd have to say, obviously, I wasn't like super into the first issue. I think I like this issue less. I think there's just a lot of things I conceptually still that I dislike, but I think this issue, it feels incredibly decompressed. I thought, this is what, 50, 60 pages, something like that. And I'm like, okay.
And there's a lot of sections that I like. I like the conversation Babs and Bruce have where they're both like driving. There's a panel that I thought was particularly great where she's like her reflections in the window of the Batmobile.
Oh, the art is phenomenal. I don't think I really like Bruce in this conversation, where he's just like, no, what are you gonna do?
Bruce is very off.
The dialogue from Bruce is a little bit on the weird side. I don't think that's unfair to say.
But I never thought Jaun's, despite how much I like the Earth One?
Yeah.
Right? The Earth One stuff out of him. His voice for Bruce has never been there for me.
Well, it's notable that Geoff Johns is Mr. DC, and we think of him as being this big DC guy, and everyone always has for a long time. But the one big exception to that is that he's never really been a Batman guy, which is weird when you think of DC. Like typically most big writers who have worked on DC now, they have a Batman run. They care about Batman. And John's had Superman, he had Green Lantern, he had a Flash run, he had JSA, he had Teen Titans, he had so many different corners of the DC universe, but he never had the Batman run. And
he did cool stuff with Batman and like Green Lantern and in Infinite Crisis. But Batman's never been the spotlight to John's. He's always been a side character. And so that's almost how he's treated here, like a side character, but he doesn't even get anything cool to do. He's just kind of grumpy. And even as someone that's very critical of Batman like I am, I don't know, it feels tone deaf.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like this. Treating Batman like a side character. If ultimately your story here was actually about Babs and Jason, I could kind of I can go along with that. It's this conversations like this where Batman's like, he's using a gun, he's killing people. We got to stop him. We got to talk to him, make him, stop being Red Hood, basically. And Batman's like, I thought he was dead. There's not a lot I can do about it. I thought he'd turn out like you. Yeah, he's very kind of nonchalant. And then we do have we'll get to it in a minute, I'm sure, but the Joe Chill stuff, which ties Batman himself more directly into the story, which, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Joe Chill's fingerprints show up on a crime scene early in the issue, and it leads them to go to see Joe Chill, who it turns out is actually dying of cancer, and there's no way he could have been at a murder scene like earlier that night. He's in a hospital bed, barely breathing.
Yeah, he's basically in hospice at that point.
Yeah.
But I did like seeing Blackgate and seeing some of the hands sticking out. You had
Rupert Thorne,
and Thorne, and that was real cool.
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like there's some characterization of Batman that's a bit off, but there's a lot of little details here that I do quite like. Where, I do like the idea of Batman dealing with Joe Chill passing away or getting sick and like dying. Like, there's something interesting to explore there of how does Batman react to him having a natural death. When the time comes. There's definitely avenues for drama that are being prodded at here that are interesting.
Yeah, well, and again, it's not it's a retcon, which is usually John's specialty, but it is a inner struggle with Bruce that he does really well, I think, John's. So, but yeah, having Joe Chill show back up, that and the Waynes dying, I'm just over it.
Yeah,
we get it. I'm tired of Batman's origin. Just move on.
Yeah. So Red Hood, through some colorful interrogation, finds his way to where the Joker might be, and he pulls out a crowbar to break off some chains, and the chains and the part of the padlock creates a smiley face on the ground.
Honestly, one of my favorite panels in the issue. I think it's very Gary Frank, isn't it? But I don't know, Fabok. I don't think I have a bad word to say about Fabok in this issue. As much as I have problems with the concept, some of the dialogue, the characterization, the art, I don't think I can say a thing bad about it.
We mentioned Gary Frank, but that moment with the smiley face feels legitimately like a Doomsday Clock panel. Just in concept, it feels like a Doomsday Clock panel.
Well, there's that, and in the story, he's playing right into Joker's hands, so that there's a smile there. And it's pushing the story forward in that way, but then it's
as much as the smiley face worked in Doomsday Clock because of the button. Of course, it works here because it's Joker. So you can kind of play it both ways.
And Jason finds a pool of people and basically Ace Chemicals toxin, which we knew they were transporting around last issue. And it seems like Joker is ultimately wanting to make one more permanent fourth Joker, but at the very least, he's also creating a bunch of disposable Jokers right now and here. And the idea that Jason could become the idea that he's Red Hood, so Red Hood becomes a Joker. That's the rules.
I kind of do like that though, but that also might be my Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond showing.
Oh, sure.
I always love that beat.
Well, I don't think it's an accident that I feel like John's here. He knows that exists. He knows people like that story. He knows people care about that story. So this implication here of this is what the Joker's trying to do, I think, is playing upon our own experiences with the character.
I think it's kind of interesting knowing that we were all roughly of an age when that was coming out, and we were younger and watching as kids, and now we are part of the largest audience for comics. We're in that age range, right? Especially right now. I think it's interesting that we've got that coming up here. We've got Phantasm showing up in Batcat later in the year or early next year, whenever that is. I can't remember.
I mean, and Batman Beyond itself as a comic ran for 52 issues. Right?
Yeah, so which is staggering. Given which we always some of the smaller books in DC.
We were always wondering when the last issue thing was coming in solicit, just because it was so clearly people were reading the book long enough that they could keep producing it. But I really did like this, that he's like, you, out of all of them, you could be my Robin. And I kind of like that sentiment.
This is the weird thing about the story in this, is that while there's elements that are off to justify certain things, the overall structure or backbone of it, I do quite like. I quite like the idea of what it's doing, and I like that it does focus so heavily on Barberi and Jason because they're the ones that have been the most affected in many ways by at least...
their trauma runs deep when it comes to Joker.
I think I like the idea of this, and I like and the idea of how those are the two that are most affected by it, and those are the two that reacted so differently. Essentially, they dealt with it in very different ways.
Yeah, they're.
I feel like this touches on that, like that conversation between Babs and Bruce about how I hope to be more like you, and they kind of skirt on how they deal with it differently, but it's not given enough time and dedication to that element, and that's a little bit frustrating for me, given how many pages this is already.
I like the moment where Joker, and it's obviously not the Joker who did it originally, given the premise of this book, but the Killing Joke Joker's bashing him with the crowbar because they've stripped him down and they've put the Red Hood mask on, and I like that he says, you better make sure I stay dead this time. This actually might be outside of Tom Taylor's work, our Lord and Savior, amen, blah blah blah.
Patron saint of mild fuzz, Tom Taylor.
But like outside of that, that's maybe the most I've actually liked them tapping into like Jason's story. Is this moment?
There are parts, and I always say there are parts of Jason I like. I hate that since the New 52, I guess they've tried to make him this edgy anti-hero, and I'm like, Jason works in small doses like this, or even I think when Winnick brought him back in Under the Hood, I think there are parts that work to him, but to try to make him this edgy Punisher-esque, it just, I don't know, it doesn't seem to fit in with Batman. And
there's
the problem is he wants to be they want him to be a Punisher character, and that's okay, but they're not willing to commit to it and go far enough. No. They still want him to be the good guy at the same time.
Well,
the difference is Punisher accepts that no, he's not the good guy.
I think the problem is that they still wanted to have him to be able to be involved with the Bat family, and if he makes the choice to go full Punisher, he can't just casually hang out with Batman anymore, because Batman will have to make the choice to take him in and put him down.
Right.
It's just,
which I like that dynamic though, of him going, "Hey, I learned from you. You're not going to catch me easy."
And that's kind of what this book is kind of getting at. Is Babs is like, no, he's gone too far. We have to take him in, and Bruce is just not wanting to deal with that.
But this is why it doesn't happen though, is because it's one story that has to have an ending. And comics being comics, they can never commit to stuff lasting forever. So we just don't get it. Another little out of character beat for me between Babs and Bruce when she kicks the door into, because they sort of get to the same place, the swimming pool area, and Batman says we could have entered quietly, and she says if Jason's here, he didn't. And Batman says, point taken. And I'm like, well, what do you mean point taken? If they're busy with noisy Jason, you can still sneak up behind them. Like, what difference does it make if he's already been loud?
I almost feel like this is not Bruce. It's someone dressed as Bruce. He's wearing hockey pads.
That's the real reason why he's got the yellow oval right now.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he does wear hockey pads.
It was one of those little things. It's just a small thing, but I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, you can still be stealthy.
Right. That's what frustrates me a lot about this. There's a lot of little moments like that fall into that, kind of just, okay, right? It's just, and it's every, 5-10 pages, which, in 50-60 pages is regular enough that it drags me out of the story repeatedly, just with something small often, but just enough that it irritates me.
So they run into the army of zombie Jokers. It's kind of unfortunate this kind of is happening at the same time as Joker War, which also has like zombie-esque Joker type drones. But
I prefer this one though, because it's not some weird gas.
Sure.
It's like just this standard Jokerizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's part of it.
So they go to find Jason, of course, once they've won the fight. And there's actually a nice moment here where they actually find like a Joker. Not one of the main Jokers, but one of these like modified Jokers, and they actually think it might be Jason for a second, which I thought was an interesting idea. But they find Jason, naked with a mask on, all bloody and beaten, and he's beside himself, and he breaks down crying. And then we get to the scene, which is naturally probably going to get a lot of discussion here. I will say I'm going to complain to Matt here a little bit actually, because Matt intentionally tried to tease this last week, and I kind of just got it from what you said, what was going to happen. I got the implication, so you spoiled this for me. And the problem with that is not that it's not even just the moment itself is spoiled, because it's obviously not something I like, right? Obviously I don't like this. The problem is that for the whole issue, I was just waiting for the bad thing to happen, because I was expecting something bad, combined with a couple of tweets, which again didn't outright say what it was, but people try to get really coy. They try to like talk about what they're upset about without specifically saying it.
To be fair, this particular rumor has been going around for about a year. Like, we heard about this a long time ago. Like,
I mean, I don't remember that. But it was Matt last week on the show when he was annoyed at me, might I add.
I was.
During Action Comics, specifically.
You poke the bear. When you lose a foot, you can't be mad.
Yes, but in an argument you were wrong on.
No, I was annoyed about you thinking Connor dying was great and hilarious and funny. That's what annoyed me. And the Parasite thing was just icing. The bones of that was the Connor thing. So, and I'll apologize if it did spoil it for you, because I don't want to be responsible for anybody not enjoying.
Well, John's funny thing is that because he said there's something I've heard about Three Jokers with Babs and Jason, and you sort of realised that you went too far and tried to add on Bruce as to throw me off. But I was like, I'd already thought about it. Like, it's the second you said those two names, I immediately.
I had to censor myself, so I felt like censoring twice because I almost said it was Killing Joke movie adjacent, and that definitely.
Yeah, I think just saying Babs and Jason. I do think, Pete, I know you said you don't remember hearing these rumors. I think maybe subconsciously it was in there, and that's kind of why you jumped straight to that. Because just, there's things about Babs and Jason could have been anything. Still, really.
Yeah.
When it's a book about those, it's not like,
However,
they weren't in the last.
The core of the complaint I'm trying to make here, and this isn't all just on Matt, though. There was a couple of tweets that annoyed me in this as well. But is that it kind of gave me this weird thing with the book where even though there was lots of things to like, and there's things to dislike too that we've talked about, the entire time I couldn't even let myself really enjoy it because I was just waiting for the bad moment to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to slightly defend Twitter in this particular instance, whoever these people were who tweeted, because
of course you are.
No, in the sense that they want to talk about it. I get that, when there's something there, and they're trying their hardest to be respectful, right? They're talking around it. They're actively not putting spoilers in it. They're trying. There's only so far
this
so
is
much
going
you can do.
This is going to sound really egotistical, but I'm
shocked.
But you know what? I'm fairly smart. Okay, so when I see people talking around things, I can usually put two and two together without trying too hard.
Right, but are you honestly saying you've never tweeted around anything?
I don't know. I'm not going to claim that.
So I legit thought for a hot second he was talking about me, and I was like, wait, I didn't tweet about Three Jokers.
No, you didn't.
I tweeted about Batman Joker Warzone, and it was pretty amorphous to what I was talking about. So
no, it was
myself
like I saw people tweeting.
On Twitter.
It was specifically tweeting about Babs specifically, and it's kind of something I don't necessarily disagree with, which I'm going to get to in a second. We talk about the actual scene and what's going on. But
here's the thing. When I saw that spoiler, because of course I clicked through, because you never know if it's actually true.
Also, you have no control.
No, I do most of the time. I do when it comes to certain things. I do like Legion. I specifically I heard something, but I was like, I'm gonna wait till I have the book in my hand.
Yeah, because I tagged you in the fact that there was something that people were talking about.
Which I could play Pete and say, oh well, if you know Legion, you could put this together because it's the one main Legion story, right? But whatever.
To be fair, in the tweet that I tagged you in, there was nothing that it was specifically about Legion's history.
No, but it was pretty big about Legion and Bendis and holy shit. And if anything, it's what I guess it was. Anyways, to this one, it was just a panel, and it was the panel that Pete's gonna digress 20 minutes
on.
The
bottom right panel, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and again, I was like, okay, well, if that's true, I don't know why people are losing their mind over it with no context, because for all we knew in the week before this book came out was this is a manic event, right? Like, we know something was going to happen with Jason or Barbara. This whole story is about trauma. Who knows what this is? And I saw a lot of people trying to drag Jaun's for it because they don't like Jaun's. And again, out of context, I don't think that's fair. I don't think you should try to look at what a writer's doing unless you have the full. And now for Pete, when I know he's going to digress about it, I think that's fair having context now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to sort of dig into. Basically, Jason's passed out at Bab's place. She comes home at one point. He wakes up, he sees all of her stuff that she was using, all the books. So she kept all of her calendars from when she was in physical therapy, and
chair.
He sees the chair sort of folded up in the corner, and it's this idea that he sees what the Joker put her through, and they kind of are bonding over this, and you start
how
to
different her road was to his, right? Like, his involved Roz in the League in a Lazarus pit, an actual death. Hers was, her being able to be surrounded by those that she cares about to pull through. And I do like that. Like, that aspect's great.
Yeah, I don't mind that, but it follows up, of course, with them kissing. And she does immediately say, that's a mistake, I was just trying to show that I cared, because clearly Jason feels that no one's ever cared about him, so it's kind of the point. But I think the frustrating thing about this, in a wider meta context, is that Babs now, in the last 5 years, right, through different mediums even, right, but in the last 5 years, right, has had sex with Bruce in an animated movie, has been shacked up with Tim in a video game, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, right? And obviously she's always had a history with Dick, which is the one that's normal and we all expect. But after this, I'm like, okay, when is she banging Damien? Because clearly we're heading there at some point. Because it started to feel like, we could just have Babs go around every Bat family member at this point.
At least with Dick, Jason, and Tim, they're all reasonably close in age with Babs.
It's not about age.
Weird, right? No, but I mean, in comparison with Bruce and then Damien at the other end, would be weird at both ways.
All right.
But it's not about age. This is not about the inappropriate nature of any of the... any of those three are completely appropriate in terms of context of age and whatever else you want to judge it on.
But when you're talking about the game, and I don't know what game this is, could they not have thrown Steph in there?
Well, that was the weird thing, is that it was Arkham Knight, and it was Tim, and it was this weird thing, and it wasn't like much to the game. It was just like, oh, by the way, in this game's universe, Bab and Tim are a couple instead of Bab and Dick, and that's just.
I think I defended this at the time. I don't mind this. I actually think Babs and Tim are a pretty decent fit.
They're too much alike. There's no way.
No, possibly. I think that is a very fair point to make, that they are very alike. But I think that makes sense to me as to why they'd try it at some point.
But
I don't like Babs being this token girl.
This is the problem. This is Jean Grey in the original X-Men, where every single guy wants to bang her. The problem here is not the inappropriate nature with any particular character. The problem is that now she's this character who, we need some sort of romance to go on here with one of the Bat family members. Oh, why not use Babs? Babs is the lady. She can be done use for that.
Although here I kind of want to defend it a little bit out of it is a state of shock thing, and it's not like it goes farther than that. If they end up as a couple at the end of the next issue, then I can be upset. But as of right now, they're both, going through something emotionally crippling, having to deal with the idea of three Jokers and which one is the one that's tied to them and all this other stuff, and Jason, getting beat near to death again. So, while I don't like it, again, it's not a deal breaker. Like, I heard people going like, I'm not even going to read the third issue now. And I'm like, well, all right, you do you. I'm not going to argue, tell you have to.
I want to see where it goes. I want to see what it does with this. But
I'm not even really enjoying it that much. But, I mean, I've read 2/3 of it at this point. I might as well just get the last one at this stage. And the Fabok art is gorgeous. Like, again, every single complaint I have is conceptual dialogue. There is nothing about the pacing of the art, the storytelling in the art. Just the sheer quality of it is next level. It is up there as the best art DC's had in years. It's up there in that conversation.
Would it surprise you that the one issue I have signed by Fabok is a Fabok Poison Ivy?
Not at all. That is completely on brand.
And I just, and he's come leagues from that. That was from Detective Comics with Layman back during the New 52, and his art from there, as great as it looked then, through Darkseid War and Justice League to now, it's amazing.
Has always been a good, upper tier artist. Mm-hmm. I think it's safe to say this is the best work of his career so far.
Yeah, I would agree with
that. It's even close for me. I think this is just a complete cut above everything else he's ever done that I've seen. Maybe someone will show me something else that I've not read, which is possible.
Well, to bring this background to the topic we were on, I think the other thing with this that ties into this problem is it's kind of got that TV syndrome where a lot of shows that run too long end up doing this thing where every possible combination of coupling that could happen will eventually happen just because there's no creativity. And
there's got to be a name for that.
There should be a name
I
for
call
it.
it friendzing.
Yeah.
Because by the end of Friends...
It's Joey and Rachel. That's what this is, but even more anger-inducing. That's what it is.
Even, because at that point, I don't care. Like, I care about maybe 4 episodes of Friends. This isn't, Barbara Gordon, who I really care about. You know what I mean? Like, by that point on Friends, it's like, whatever. Huh?
What are the 4 episodes?
Oh, let's not talk about Friends.
No. I will say, my favorite Friends episode of all time, and it's one I'll watch anytime, is when they're all late, and it's basically a bottle episode to Ross's paleontology dinner, and that one still makes me laugh like a madman. And I don't even like Friends that much, but that's an early, I want to say like season 3.
Yeah.
I just threw out 4 to throw out a thing, but just to show it's not Barbara Gordon, who I do care about as a character. Like
Friends is just the easy example for this because the whole first chunk of the show was about Ross and Rachel, and then you get to this later part where it's like, oh hey, now it's Joey and Rachel for some reason, just because they've ran out of things to do. And a lot of sitcoms are guilty of it, and this kind of feels a little bit like that to me. And then on top of that, again, with this problem where, and again, it's in different mediums, it's not even like it's all been in comic books, but having all these things happen in the last 5 or so years, it starts to take this kind of toll as a whole. And I just kind of feel this laziness with the idea of what to do with Barbara Gordon as a character. And it makes her feel less like her own character and more like a tool that's being used around the other characters. So, I mean, it's not because, someone I like is with a character I don't like. I don't give a shit. I mean, I do care a little bit, but I'm not angry about that. Like, the anger here is more about how she as a character on her own merits is kind of being used. And I think this might not be a big deal. In hell, for all we know, next issue, this could turn out to all be inside Jason's head because he's a dirty little pervert, and that's fine. But
that would almost be more annoying because of the way it's presented, where it's very clearly not, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm just throwing out ideas.
I didn't know this about Babs and Tim in the game, because had I known that, then it would definitely color the opinion. I'd probably be a little bit more annoyed when I first read this, but this is just like, oh, this is a mistake like Pete's talking about.
In context of that game, I don't think she was ever with Dick. That was never a relationship. It was
but Connor, but still
I get
the medicines of it though is what's frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially when there's other characters that they could pull from. They don't have to have Barbara Gordon in that game. It could have easily been Steph and Tim.
To be fair, Barbara was quite important in that game. Steph just...
Yeah, Tim is the weird one because Tim, he just happened to be the Robin in the game, and it was this sort of thing, they just sort of tacked it on so they could have, like, in the epilogue at the end, to say, hey, they're happy together now, happily ever after. There wasn't much to it.
It was kind of a nothing thing, really.
But it was just a weird thing that stuck out.
In the grand thing, it is something that sticks with me now, that's the first 3 Robins, and, like, come on. Johns, you're better than that.
So far, we're only at 2 of them in comics.
Yeah.
And comics, but I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
So it's just it's one of those things that's really unfortunate, and so no, I don't like this turn of events, and I will. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought because of like the way it was been hinted at. I was almost expecting a Killing Joke movie scene with them on a rooftop or something. Like I was
still like the worst moment in any DC animated film.
Oh, easily. He had me watch that with zero context to see how upset I got.
Well, the movie or just that scene?
No, the movie. He goes, "Go ahead, watch Killing Joke. It's decent." And then when I got to that point in the movie, I go, "You son of a bitch! How dare you?" Yeah.
Why? Why
because then his reasoning was, "I had to see it, so now you have to." Too.
Yes.
Feel my anger. And then we did a review on it.
The annoying part of that is that the movie after that like new half-hour chunk wasn't too bad. It was a decent adaptation of the book. But the problem is that romance element they added in completely changes the tone of so much of what's in the original story. I think technically Babs was with Bruce in the Lego Batman, but that's very different. And she was much very different version of Babs.
That's not the Barbara Gordon we know. She
was like Police Commissioner Barbara Gordon at that point.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually,
It's completely different.
in Titan season 3, they're having Barbara Gordon, but she's going to be the commissioner, so she's going to be older than Dick. Is this going to be the one where she's like been dating Alfred? Is that what they're going to do with this? Even Alfred gets a turn. You know. See the problem with this?
Yeah, it's the least they can do before they send him off.
I'm just, it would be nice.
Is she still Batgirl in that universe?
In Titan,
Do we not know yet?
I don't know if we know. I
don't keep up with the Titans news.
I do. I just know she's commissioner in season 3.
No, I'm really disappointed at how much I dislike that show because I learned that Hill is like one of the main writers on it.
Oh, that's a shame.
And I'm like, oh man, I thought I liked.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
Usually.
Yeah, it's not that show.
Huh.
But hey, so how's this end? Oh yeah, they've got Joker's got Joe Chill.
Joe Chill.
Yeah, that's right.
They said.
Yes.
And then
again, I don't like.
I groaned at this last page. Why did you really kill Thomas and Martha? Wait, no, stop this. Don't need any more bullshit explanations.
I want Joe Chill to go, I needed money for my family, and it was an accident. And then Bruce hugs him, and Joker goes, that's not how this is supposed to work, and then kills Joe Hill.
Hey,
that's the
imagine
Joe, not Joe Hill. You leave Joe Hill alone.
If this book has the audacity, and I mean that in a good way, to have Batman forgive Joe Chill, you know what? It's done something ballsy that I can respect.
That's what I'm saying. That's the only way that they get out of it without me starting off grumpy on the next issue. Because of the way this left me. I got the end of this.
Groaned at this last page. I was like, oh, not this shit again.
No, I was reading this before bed, and I had the light still on. I told Ashley when I'm done, I'll shut off the light. And then not that I threw it down, but I gave an annoyed
slam the light switch.
I put the book away. She goes, what? I go, I don't even want to talk about it. She goes, they kill the Waynes again. I go, no. So I read this first just to get it out of the way and thinking there might be something in this that annoys me, so I want to make sure something afterwards makes me feel better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chip.
It was a good plan. It was the right call.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
Stand by it.
Put that on the trade.
Oh.
Read this first, so then your day's not ruined. Connor.
Read something else after this.
Oh, okay. So I guess we're gonna get to rating it then.
Yeah, I suppose we are. I mean, it gives a lot to talk about, if nothing else. I'll give it that. Okay. Matt, what are you giving Three Jokers issue 2?
So this is a weird one because the story, while it wasn't bad, it was really decompressed, but the art is really, really, really good. So I want to give it a 7, but I think that might be too high. But the art, I think, justifies at least 6 of that. So yeah, I'll go 7.
Connor?
For context, I checked. I gave the last issue a 5.5. And this one I like less because of its pacing as well as the ideas. So I'm going to give this one a 4.5, and 4 of those points are for Fabok.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with a 6.5 on this. Obviously, there's some ideas I don't like, particularly towards the end, but there's a lot of ideas that I do like, and I do think, as we mentioned, the art is extremely very good. It feels like it has the production value of the story's a bit flawed, obviously, but if this was a movie, this is something that's had $300 million spent on it to look immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the script's a little bit off in some of its ideas. So, yeah, there you go, 6.5 for me. Batman, Joker... Oh, no, I'm skipping one. Dark Knights, Death Metal, Multiverse's End, Issue 1, James Tynion the 4th, and Juan Gedeon. So, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Was anyone else kind of surprised that this was just one story?
Yes, this could have been a miniseries.
Not in the sense that the other 2 one-shots this month were also just one story, so I was expecting just one story.
Fair enough. For whatever reason, when I came into this one, Multiverse's End, it just sounded like it was going to be not necessarily a full anthology, but 2 or 3 stories.
No, I get that, but I feel like there's a lot going on here. This could have been a 3 issue, and I would have been fine with it.
I mean, that said, it's also like what 50 pages. So if they did split it into three, it'd only be 10 more pages technically.
Yeah.
So
So that's what I thought what you meant by just one story, just one issue. That said, I really enjoyed this. This is what I love about DC events, when it plays with all of the different continuities,
histories, and just
and just like I get Guy Gardner talking to Captain Carrot.
And Guy Gardner having fun punching some Nazis.
Let's explain the context of this. So the book is essentially John Stewart trying to convince Owlman from Earth 3 that he should enact his plan, because Owlman is basically rigged all of the tuning forks in the 6 remaining multiverses to go. He's actually planned for all this, and his motivation is quite interesting. He basically is pissed because he is the one true anti-Batman who existed way before all these dark multiverse crap phony Batman ever showed up.
I love this.
That's a great idea. And so,
I love that he's hipster evil Batman.
So the wraparound is him basically learning from John Stewart what the context is, which gives us a bit of a recap of certain things and so on. Meanwhile, we see some of the teams in the various multiverses fighting back. We see basically all led by Green Lantern, more or less. We have Hal in one universe, we've got Guy in one, we've got Jessica and Simon in another, and they're all fighting back against the various. And we have Perpetua unleashes the multicolor core of evil Batman to fight everyone.
I love the meta because I got annoyed at that, and then when we get to the end. And it's Owlman going off about how much of a bad idea they are. I'm just like, Tynion, you are really proving your merit here.
Well, okay, I mean, if you're going to jump to that, let's do it properly. So the whole idea here with Owlman is what eventually convinces him that he should side with the Justice League and whoever's left try to save the multiverse, is that he sees through the the Harbinger Chronicles, whatever it is. He's like, okay, how there was previous Owlmen? Like, how did they die? Because he learns, about the crisis. He learns about how Perpetua was whispering.
At first, he's gutted that he's not even the original anti-Batman.
Yeah, but he hears about how Perpetua was whispering in the ears of the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid, and how all the crisis happened and all built up to her being released. And he's like, okay, so how did the previous Owlmen all die? And he sees how each one died, and he's like, okay, I'm convinced. And then as he's playing out his plan, the reason why he's like on board with this and he wants to destroy all these tuning forks and why he wants to make sure that Batman and Batman's world survives is because as long as he survives, there's always going to be an Owlman because he's permanent. Because every time reality resets, there's always an Owlman because there always has to be anOwlman. The real anti-Batman will always exist because there's always going to be a Batman. It's genius.
I kind of love this.
Well, and I love that it plays too with what we learned in Metal about the owl and the hawks, and how the bat became that symbol, and then the owl was the corrupted version of that, and that's why he was Owlman and on Earth 3, and just him the no more bats. I thought was a real fun page.
There's a lot of references in this issue.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's even a joke about putting kale in a fridge.
That was probably the only one I didn't really like that much. That one felt a little bit off to me.
That was a bit too elbow nudgy, going like, huh?
Yeah.
We're getting meh. It's fine. Also, Kyle's on the vampire planet, just for the record, and he's pissed that he's on a vampire planet.
there's structure, and he said if he gets bit, he's coming back and taking the rest of the core, which I did like.
I think that's fair.
But so with Perpetua's plan, the tuning towers are on the 4 of the darkest realities. Which I did like. So you have Earth 3, you have the Earth 10 with the Freedom Fighters, where Guy Gardner's punching Nazis, making Venditti proud. And then we got the
29, Batman? 29, 43. 43 is the vampires.
Right.
29's the Bizarro one.
Bizarro, which I like that's a dark one, even though Bizarro isn't dark. That world's very dark.
Yeah, even though he's not inherently dark, just the idea that they're opposites of all the goodness makes it bad.
Right. I like that. And then, of course, the whole Vampire Batman Earth.
And then 50. Which one was 50?
That's the Justice Lords.
Oh, yes.
Where Flash dies, it's from the cartoon.
Yeah.
And they become, fascist superheroes. And it's almost, they're not Nazis, but they're, you know, adjacent at that point. So, and then of course the tuning fork that's on the metal on Earth Zero, that plays in. But no,
and
I love how layered this was for that.
Oh yeah, and you've got, because even when it keeps cutting back to the characters who are doing the fighting, there's some good bits with Captain Carrot. I thought when he was crying his eyes out because of the people that he's lost, and you know, those moments.
And that he's never had to deal with death.
Oh, Matt, you might.
And you know, we had because Carrot was with Guy. He had like, you know, Guy punching the Nazis
and Irish,
you know, practicing his one punch knockout.
Yes, and Irish Kid Flash was with that team as well.
Yeah, that's from the Irish Kid Flash. That's from Kingdom Come, right? That's the new Flash.
I can't remember. It's been too long.
It's been a while since I read Kingdom Come.
So I tried to find this out this morning. This is how I left my iPad in my wife's car. As we were going to the dog park this morning, I was trying to cross-reference. Where's the Justice Incarnate Wonder Woman from? What Earth? Because they were talking about how much of a warrior she is, but I can't place the Earth. And it was driving me nuts.
I think they said Earth 6.
Okay.
Or which Earth that is? I haven't got a multiverse.
I have to find, because Earth 5 is the Shazam one. So I looked up Justice League, or the Justice Incarnate.
Try Earth 6, because I've got a. I think that was the one that she was.
Well, while he's looking that up, let's talk about maybe even the best thing in this issue, which I love the Owlman stuff. I love Owlman's motivations and why he does what he does. It's actually, I mean, it's technically the actual best thing in the issue. But let's talk about the fact that Bat Baby from the that last one shot popped back up, leading reading the Lantern Corps, and some of his dialogue is absolutely wonderful. Like.
I'm going to eat your effing heart with my baby teeth.
Yes.
Stood out.
No, I'm a Batman. I can't lose. Was another line I liked. And then even at the end, he tries to please, like, but I'm just Widow.
Yeah.
I love that it's just having, because you've got like quite serious elements going on with the Jaun and Owlman stuff. Serious in context of the story, right? But then you have utterly ridiculous things like Baby Bat, and Captain Carrot is inherently a cartoonish, funny character, right? So, you know, you have a wide spectrum of things in this issue.
Although Captain Carrot stuff played pretty seriously. Although Baby Bat, just for record, if you're thinking, you know, you didn't buy this issue, so you're just hearing what happened in the one shots because you can't afford to like pick up all the tie-ins. That's fair enough. And you heard us talk about how the whole story with Baby Bat in the last time was that he couldn't stand up. His head was too heavy and he kept falling over. He's gotten around that now because he has a bat jetpack that he flies around in.
He's basically Bat Modok. I just finished West Coast Avengers, and it very much reminds me of Modok.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Is that a bad idea?
Okay, so real quick, if she's from Earth 6, then that is the Just Imagine Stan Lee universe.
Oh.
And that checks out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It says she's an activist protesting against corporate excavation of an ancient Incan holy site near her village, Maria Mendoza. So, so that okay. Thank you, Connor, because it was driving me nuts. I couldn't remember what Earth, and I couldn't. Going back through and trying to.
Yeah, I think at one point when she's calling for help, she says, "You know, this is Wonder Woman of Earth 6."
There you go. Okay. So, well, I like that she's there. As there's
a wide variety of the 52 Earths represented, and I love how much DC has embraced multiversity and just the concept and the map, because it was such like just a side project ultimately that Morrison did, and I love that book, that series, all those one shots. I think it's a great story in its own right. But the idea that they did latch onto it and went, no, we're gonna build.
Yeah, but how many times does DC do that now? When you think back to all the other stories that were technically just outside of continuity that have become part of continuity.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about Killing Joke in Three Jokers, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is why I like Morrison, because he's almost the anti-Alan Moore, where he wants you to use his ideas. He leaves these breadcrumbs, and he's like, "Hey, use it." And the fact that there's still 7 Earths that are not known. So there's 7 other ones that people could decide.
And he intentionally left them blank for maybe for future movie or TV adaptations. So we can slot those into that Earth, or maybe you need a new Earth for whatever reason, right? have at it. You got 7 to choose
Grant
from.
Morrison has exactly the opposite amount of hair of Alan Moore as well, so I suppose that tracks out.
So if
They are
this
identical.
is, if there is every force has an equal and opposite, I feel like Alan Moore and Grant Morrison are those opposites. Down to like Pete just said, the hair. Alan Moore is also, he's English, right?
Yes, and
Yeah,
Morrison is Scottish.
Yeah. So there's
It's a very deep-seated rivalry between the pair of them.
Both apparently use magic, to tell stories and whatnot. Both have worked on, meta stories. So like, it's very weird. But anyways, I just like just to tag on what Connor was saying, the fact that there's so many of the different Earths at play here. This really does feel like the multiverse. Like it lives up to its title, Multiversity's End.
Yeah, and
Multiverse's End.
Even just the stuff like when Alman's reviewing his history, they talk about, okay, this was born with the new 52 Earths, and it's just like, no, screw it, we're just going to use that as a designation. It's fine. And I'm like, and there are some times when they use things like that, like the 0 year or Flash's year 1, where I'm like, don't put this in the story. That doesn't work. It's terrible. Whereas this, I kind of just, okay, it's kind of working for me here.
Well, what else are we going to call it, basically? Like, it's there has to be some sort of
designation
breakdown
we
for
need
it.
something for it, yeah.
Because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this early on. Because early on, it was like, okay, it's jumping around a lot. There's some of it's a bit recappy. Because it was like, okay, explain the backstory, and he's like, okay, well, there was Perpetua and the Source Walls and the Crisis, and
then you build into traditional Crisis backstories as well.
So, but once it built up enough, and it got to Owlman actually being convinced and his motivations, and everything about that, and then the fun of the Bat Baby with the Lantern Corps Batman, like once it got to all that though, and it all started to click into place, it actually felt like a really well-rounded full issue that somehow has completed a trilogy of tie-in one-shots this month that have all felt like they're all, if not essential, all add a lot to the overall story, and somehow has continued the trend where I don't think Death Metal's had a bad tie-in issue so far.
There's been okay tie-ins, like some of the early ones where we were like, yeah, it was just all right.
Well, I liked them more than you did. You were...
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't really, they weren't great either, right? They were like, yeah, they were all right. I'm not saying they were bad, but I don't think you were batting for them being great issues.
Great. I think you're underselling it though. I think it was more than just all right. I think my exact phrase at the time was, I am pleasantly surprised. These are actually pretty good.
But I mean, even still, like even by my standards, they're all right at least. There hasn't been a bad issue. I might say those were a little bit superfluous, and just kind of you could skip them quite easily if you wanted to. These three are a bit different, where I would probably advise them to be recommended reading for the event. The first one, the most of all, the Trinity Crisis. I think that's the most essential one, and then probably this one, because I know this one at the end says it's going to be followed up in a different one shot. Yeah. But just this dealing with the tuning forks feels like an important beat overall, at least to me. And the Flash one is probably the least important of the three, but still. I
think this one and the Flash one feel about equal to me, because they're both essentially things that you can sum up as, these other characters achieved a thing, okay, let's move forward. That's what they both boil down to.
So what I like that they all play in the spirit of what a crisis is that we get to see the three different crises in the first one, in Trinity Crisis, and it explains to us that crises are important because these are flashpoint moments in DC history where things change for the big changes. And then, in a crisis, the Flash always has something important to do. And in this one, in Speed Metal, we got to see the Flashes, trying to go toe-to-toe with the Darkest Night.
And teasing that, a Flash always dies in Crisis.
Right.
Yeah.
And here explains why crises are so important beyond their flashpoints. It's like, this is why, with the whole meta idea of Owlman's purpose here.
The effect it has on the multiverse as a whole, not just our handful of characters. I mean, obviously, quite a large cast of characters, but relatively speaking, in the multiverse, a small handful.
Do you know what's so funny about this is I'm looking at the way that these one-shots are all building up, and some of them I feel are quite important to the overall story. it basically, to me, says that the trade for death metal is going to be basically useless, and you should wait for the omnibus that'll have all of it included, because most of it seems like it's actually quite important at this point.
Or at the very least, they might do a deluxe one with some of the things cherry picked. They do obviously usually release the trades with these one shots more or less alongside the main trade. So you could probably pick that up as long as you're aware going in that, okay, stop after issue 3 or whatever it was and go and read these one shots. If you've got the other book there.
But I think the optimal...
It's a less ideal...
Yeah, the optimal experience for this is absolutely going to be an omnibus. Like, when they do the 1,000-page omnibus, because it'll probably be about that once you account for all these one-shots that are all 50 pages, plus the main 7-issue book. Like, it's easily going to get there, I think. Or close to it.
I mean, the main book alone is going to be, about 200 pages by the end? Because I think they're a bit oversized.
Yeah, so... And this is what, our 5th, 50-page one-shot so far?
Yeah, and we've got at least 5 or 6 more to go.
Yeah, so we're usually do that. And then some of those big, 80 to 100-page one-shots we're getting in December, I think at least one of them is more tied to death metal than the other two are, so I don't know if that ends up getting included. So
far out of all of them, I feel like the first one, the Trinity Crisis, if they're going to throw that into the death metal, that one's probably...
That's the one
that they did the most?
That's the one that feels like it might be in the main trade no matter what, just because it actually does feel like it's just issue 4.5 or 3.5.
Just drawn by Manipul and
honestly, that's the only reason that isn't issue 4 is the artists.
Right.
I'm convinced they just wanted the main book to be just Snyder and Capullo, and I get that. This is their story, and I appreciate that you want that. You want to put the artist on equal footing.
It's hard to sort of pretend that it's anything but the real issue 4, just because even the cliffhangers leading into the next issue, so it's not even like it's a standalone thing that you can kind of some way carve out. This has a cliffhanger that they're going to address in the next issue.
Yeah, and this one says it's going to be continued in Rise of the New God, and I don't know when that issue is off the top of my head, but
it's coming up, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
And if it hasn't been solicited, then we'll see it in January.
I'm sure it has been solicited. It rings a bell, and more importantly, if it hadn't, we would have had plenty of news sites this week telling us, "Oh, this new issue is going to be coming," and why haven't we heard about it yet?
So, no, surprisingly very good. These one shots. I mean, I think overall this has been a very impressive event so far. Now they could completely shit the bed with the back half and all the ending stuff, but at the very least, I can't remember the last time that I've been into an event where every single tie-in thus far. And I'm including the Justice League, we've only had one issue of it so far. And don't get me wrong, I think the Justice League arc from the one issue doesn't feel as impressive as any of these recent one-shots, but it still feels like it's worth reading. I can't remember the last time an event with all these tie-ins has actually felt like I'm actually enjoying digging into more. I'm not, instead of feeling exhausted by all these superfluous tie-ins, I'm like, oh, this is a lot of extra little bits of context and different corners of the universe. And
if it was 2-3 tie-ins a week, it dragged you down. At most, we're getting 1, maybe 2 issues at most a week.
Yeah, it feels like they've learned to pace them.
Yeah, and I did just check the Rise of the New God. It's coming October 27th. What is interesting is it's only the backup story that spins out of the cliffhanger from Multiverse's end.
Okay.
I say cliffhanger. I mean,
that's
tentative use of that in the solicit there. But it also has Brian Hill listed as one of the writers with Tynion. So I'm assuming Hill's doing the main story and Tynion's doing the one continuing from this. But I could be wrong.
Okay. All right, Matt, what are you rating?
I don't feel like you talked about the art, which I feel really matches the chaotic aspect of everything that's going on, because I feel like Guy fits in right next to Captain Carrot, and
it's a real big head talent. Baby. It's a real talent to make the art feel not just consistent, but to have it be across all these different Earths and feel like it suits all of them in their own way, because they are very different Earths.
The big head baby Batman and the Rainbow Batman do not feel out of place next to Owlman.
Right, and like I say, Captain Carrot next to Ultraman, for example.
Right.
Just works.
Right. So now that I threw that there, I'm giving this an 8.5. This was a whole lot of fun.
Connor?
Yeah, same from me. 8.5.
Yeah, I'm also going to go 8.5. Very impressed with the Old Man stuff. Really, really quite love that motivation and what they did with him. So, cool. Batman the Joker Warzone issue 1 by Various, because there's multiple stories by multiple writers and artists. I'm not even going to bother trying. This is, I mean, I'm looking forward to talking about one of them in particular, but we'll do it in order. We'll do it in order.
It's so overall impressions, though. I think we can kind of just talk about that quickly before we talk about individual stories.
I mostly like this. Yeah. So
I think my biggest complaint is very few of them feel like complete stories. They all feel like prologue teasers for things that are coming in 2021, and I'm like, that's great, but some of these could have just been like, you know, occasionally they release those free like teaser 0-issue things on Comixology, just like here's like 10 pages of a free thing. Like most of them kind of feel like that, even though I quite enjoy them as a whole.
I mean, they could have done that, but like, I have no problem with them saying, "Hey, we've got a book that teases a bunch of Bat Family stuff for the next year. So here's a collection of teasers." Like,
no,
I have no
get
problem with that.
And I like all of the things it's teasing. I just don't think any of these are a satisfying short story in their own right, or maybe one or two of them, but not many of them.
I think there's two of them I think really fit. The other ones, I think those are the two that almost tie in. Well, one of them ties into Joker War more than the other one. The other one's a really good tease for something coming up, but then the rest of them, I like that. I'm excited for what's going on with Batman, which I usually don't. Yeah. Although then again, this is not a lot of Batman. This is side characters that I happen to enjoy.
I have no problem with this being teases for stuff coming in 2021. Yeah. Obviously, the first stories get the Gillen March art, which obviously isn't great.
But I love the story, and I hate Tynion for this.
Oh no, I do too. Basically, this story is Joker taunting Bane, who's like strapped up to this anti-venom machine.
Yeah, it's basically a dialysis machine for Venom.
Yeah, to keep him weak enough.
When he put the mask on Bane, I was like, "Oh, you disrespectful shit."
Yeah. So what this is basically the idea that, well, two things. One, Joker taunting him that, hey, you took over the city. So this actually keeps King's Run in mind in continuity and refers back to it a lot. But the big thing he does is that he basically says, you wasted the biggest thing any of us could have done. Now, what's funny about this, of course, is that was actually less Bane and more, the Flashpoint Batman that did this. But obviously, I don't imagine that's general knowledge for a lot of the villains in Gotham.
Right, but Joker knows. But because he brings up that imposter Batman.
I don't know if he knows how much the imposter Batman, as he puts it, was kind of behind everything.
Yeah, because he's clearly blaming Bane for the kill itself. So I think he doesn't know that it was. I don't think he knows that Flashpoint Batman was the mastermind who was pulling the strings, if you will.
Okay.
But the big thing here, though, is like, no, that butler was like the one last thing, like to make Batman feel what he felt as a kid. The idea that you could, kill him is the ultimate, pull of the trigger to really mess with them. It's the biggest, most cataclysmic thing you could do to that person. And you wasted it with him not even being there to see it.
You wasted it on his kid.
On a Robin. You didn't you're not Bane who broke the bat. You've turned into Bane who broke the little bird. Like, that's who you are. And
him talking down to Bane is one of my favorite things, because it fits in with the Harley Quinn TV show continuity.
It does.
So I love it ends with him walking away through the mist of the why Bane still has mist in it is another question, but whatever. I'll give it creative license. And Bane's just left there, essentially quietly contemplating the fact that the Joker has just belittled him so much, and it's like, Bane's got something to prove. Like, in 2021, Bane might come swinging because he wants to prove that he's still the big bad Bane.
I hope he breaks the clown. That's what I'm hoping for.
What I want is a Bane story at last, for the first time in years, where it's not ultimately, someone else was the big bad.
Right. Well,
I want Bane trying to prove himself.
Yeah, that's why I've always liked Bane. And again, that falls into my type of that villain that could be the hero with a couple turns. That's what I did like in King's Run, that him and Bruce are so similar. They're both built up from tragedy, but the way they went about it was so different. And that I'm kind of rooting for Bane to have a hand in defeating Joker. Yeah, I know it's not going to happen, but...
One of the things here that's really old school that Tynion, who wrote this story, I should have mentioned, chose to do is that the narration at the start and the end It's not the usual first-person narration from Bane. It's actually third-person, so it's a very old-school villain-sounding. And this is funny because later on for the Patreon book, I'm going to do issue 1 of Grant Morrison's Animal Man, which is an example of this. So I actually just read something with this in it today, but it's very old school. If you go back to stuff from the 80s and early 90s, there's a lot of third-person narration for villains. The idea that we don't get to hear what they're thinking, we hear kind of this ominous third presence describing what they're thinking. And the box here that I think is really good right at the end is he's talking about the guards walking by and them being scared, but not of him. And the exact panel that I love is he hears the word clown and part of him wants to scream, but instead he waits. Like, I'm like, damn, that gets me psyched for, like, you know, like, what's he going to be like when he gets out of there?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love it. Obviously, Gilliam March's art is bleh, but
yeah.
And I hate that this means that this story that we're teasing here is probably going to be the Gilliam March story, right?
Yeah, very possible. Yeah.
It tempers my excitement a tad, even though I think the core concept and the story idea has me very excited for it. It absolutely does. But just the fact that I go, this is probably going to be a March story, just makes me go, just a little bit.
That said, he draws the ghastliness of Bane hooked to that machine really well. You know,
honestly, Bane's physique's one of the things that Gilliam March might actually be quite good at.
It's because Bane is one of those few characters you can go stupidly 90s overboard with and no one will question.
Yeah, so that's tease number 1 for 2021. I would say it's successful in what it's teasing. The second,
I also think that's one of the more well-rounded stories.
Sure.
That has a point to it.
Sure. Well, they all have a point. It's just that you don't like that they're not a point on their themselves.
A point beyond the tease, a point of it as a story in their own little right.
Because the next story is teasing the John Ridley Batman story it's called. Because John Ridley wrote this, Oliver Couple on the art. And this is him kind of recuperating from the attack from Punchline. And I think what this told me more than anything else is not only that obviously Luke Fox being like a Batman type character is going to be a big deal, but also that we're really going to get their family as a whole, because we get introduced to a lot of characters here in their family.
Yeah, vaguely met most of them before.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I say introduced. I don't mean it's the first time I've seen them. I just mean that it's, you know, in terms of like this story and this run that we're going to have, this is clearly the introduction to this family unit and how they all interact with each other. You know, hearing the others, seeing the injury even on Tamara, you know, their mangled fingers from an attack. Like, you know, this stuff is pretty. You know, it gives it a different sense, and we have this attack where a bunch of Joker henchmen show up because they want the drive with the money from Catwoman that Fox got in the. Was that in Catwoman 25 or was that in?
It was.
Yeah, it was in Catwoman 25. Yeah,
and there was an editor's note to tell you about that as well.
There was an editor's note, but I was trying to remember if it was accurately in that book itself or if it was in the.
It was
the other thing. Yeah, okay.
I think that was the end of the main story of that book.
That sounds right. But yeah, so obviously Lucas Fox armors up, you know, goes all Batwing.
Oh, I missed Batwing.
Do you know what? It occurred to me, you know, when the gauntlet comes out, because that's what you see first. I was like, holy shit, I don't think I've seen Batwing since Tynion's detective run ended.
No. Like,
I genuinely don't think I've seen him in a single book.
No, he's kind of just disappeared. He's gone to the back.
Like, we've seen Luke Fox here or there, like, occasionally. Like, I mean, as recently as Catwoman, obviously. But, you know, I think I've seen him a couple of times, maybe in Batman here or there. But Batwing, I don't recall seeing at all in, 2 years?
Yeah, it's been a long time. You know, it made him feel like a cool presence here, and it made me excited, the idea that we're going to get a run that might actually establish him as a character that many of us really grow to care about, because I don't know if that's really been there. And I know some people read like the New 52 Batwing series. I never did. It didn't seem that interesting at the time.
I did. It was okay.
It was fine. You know, it could have been literally any other hero. It didn't have to be tied to Batman. It could have been a solo story, and it still would have worked.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm loving the idea that this may really establish him as a proper legacy character that we we then think of as one of the main characters who could take over for Batman someday. I think
it's pretty telling that we had him as a main character in the Bat family in Detective Comics for 2.5 years, whatever that was, and we just haven't seen him since. No one picked up on it. No one was like, "Oh, well, we should have Batwing around." There was just nothing. And
that kind of, if generations had gone through and he's the current Batman, then I feel like that was the play, right? Like,
Yeah.
because no one's doing anything with him. Why not? But here it feels like there's definitely the Fox family is taking a new precedent, which is cool.
Yeah. So police show up though, because there's a moment here where Lucius has a gun aimed at his son in the suit, and I think the implication here is that the effect of the Joker gas that he received is still playing with his mind
on him,
because he's wearing sunglasses all issue, the hood up to cover it. But we do see him at the start, and there is a bit of a mad glint. His lips are a little bit red, like just a hint of a grin.
Mm-hmm.
I do actually think Coipel is the artist on this. I think Coipel is fantastic as a rule. I do think his Lucius looks a little bit young.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. Yeah,
but that's my only real critique with the art here. I think everything else looks great. I just think Lucius looks a little bit young at times.
Yeah, it doesn't help as well that his son's much taller than him. So
it makes sense that Luke's a big imposing figure. I think he comes from a sports background. I'm sure is part of his backstory. It makes sense that he's built that way, and Lucius is a smaller man. That's fine.
Well, yeah,
but he doesn't look as old as he's traditionally portrayed.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that because he looks younger and now he looks smaller than his son, he feels more like a little brother than he does his father. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Obviously, lots of people grow up to be taller than their parents. That's really not what I'm arguing against here.
Not me.
Well, I'm sorry. I apologize to all the short arses of the world who felt triggered by that comment.
That's all you should. Apology not accepted.
You can only go on the ride if you're yay big man, okay?
Hey, I haven't had that problem since like 6th grade. It's fine.
Yeah, but you stopped growing at 6th grade. Most people, most people keep going for a bit.
Hey, I'm only 5'6". Come on now. I'm not that short. Like I'm short, but not that short.
5'8", 5'9". I'm around the cusp between them.
Yeah, so
which is about average.
Trying to see about Luke Fox. Oh boy. Also in Batgirl 45, Luke Fox began a romantic relationship with Barbara Gordon.
Okay, if you're just listening to this review, you didn't listen to our Three Jokers review, I recommend going back and get the context for why we're laughing at that. I'm
just trying to see what his history is, and it doesn't, like, it just gives his, like, character history, not in the comics, but yeah, I'm sure he was a standout athlete at some point.
Yeah, I feel like he was like, he's got the quarterback figure, hasn't he?
I mean, basketball, he could have played any sport, the size he is. Like,
that's true.
Brick shithouse.
So just to bring us back to the issue, though, we have a big kind of, a big social commentary moment where the police show up, which Luke called them, and there's a standoff because Lucius is holding this gun, and the guy's ready to fire, and he's yelling that he's going to fire at him, and it's just, it's when they run out, and Luke says, "I'm the one who called you," and they kind of de-escalate the situation. But it's hard not to see the political current climate in these pages.
Mm-hmm.
This police officer, threatened to shoot Lucius. It's this there on the page. So, it's clearly setting up that we're going to have the family dynamic. It's clearly setting up that we're going to have these supporting characters be big facets of the story. And I think also the idea that politics are going to come into it. It's not going to shy away from these things. Not that I'm surprised at that from John Ridley, by no means.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But
yeah, it's to be expected, right?
Yeah. So, I would agree that this is probably one of the weaker ones, only in the sense that it doesn't do much as a story on its own compared to some of the others. But it's made me excited for the run, though. Like, I'm looking forward to the story. I'm excited to be excited about Batwing, I suppose. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I always liked him, and I didn't know if that was just Tynion, right? But him almost as like the Tony Stark analog who had all of this, the technology doing the heavy lifting for him. He was kind of cocky, and it really fit in with the Bat family really well.
Well, I think that was the thing that stuck out to me here, is his big moment here where the gauntlet comes up and then you turn the page and he's in full armor. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if he ever quite got moments like that in that detective run where, I liked him well enough, but this made him feel like a big deal. This made him feel like a star.
Yeah, and the Iron Man comparison is apt. I think that's kind of always been the intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously people compare Batman and Iron Man anyway. Just okay, no powers, rich, buy their suit and everything.
Yeah.
But this is even more direct in that. No, it's the mechanicalized suit.
Yeah. So real quick, I just found his history. He was a mixed martial artist before.
Okay.
So yeah. So
that's
and
cool.
that
That
fits,
counts.
right, but that also fits in with him joining the Bat family and being able to take care of himself. It's not just sports. It's he's a combatant. So and he apparently went to MIT.
Now, speaking of combatants, Henchmaster, going to the next story.
Oh.
Henchmaster, this is it, even before we get to what this story is actually about and the characters that obviously I want to talk about. The idea that there's someone out there who will take in people who want to become a henchman and train them in the different ways that different supervillains in Gotham would want henchmen. So I'll train you to be a Riddler henchman or a Penguin henchman or a Joker henchman. That's hilarious
Pete,
to
I
me.
don't want to bust your bubble, but that's Taskmaster over at Marvel.
Yeah, but that's Marvel. I don't know about Marvel.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Okay. I'm just telling you that I feel like this is what this character was, I don't want to say ripping off, but paying homage to.
But
in that, not visually at least, though.
No.
Yeah. All right, he's a
But
big bulky dude with red gloves. He looks like a Street Fighter character.
He does.
Does.
But yeah.
It looks like him and Zangief would go for a sandwich together or something. I don't know. But in a bite comes Cass and Steph, Spoiler and Orphan, and we get a little flashback explaining why they're here. I think Williamson, who wrote this story, gets to the dialogue here where Steph is a motor mouth and then Cass will just respond with a quick sentence or a quick couple of words here or there. It really gets the vibe from them. But their whole idea is that they want to give the city hope. So it's the middle of the Joker War, and they want to get the signal. But the main signal on top of the station has been destroyed. So they want to get a signal and light in the sky. And Steph's like, oh, well, my dad had one in storage. There's all these villains are there. We can go get it. So it's them getting this, and the story ends with, after some fighting with the henchmaster and all that, is they're in the clock tower, and they're talking about how the symbol's important, right? Because that's what the story ends up being called. It's called the symbol. And we find out the final page is revealing that they have modified their outfits to carry that idea that the symbol is important. So Cass is basically, with a couple of slight modifications, just in her Batgirl outfit. Steph is in kind of a hybrid of the Spoiler suit and her Batgirl suit.
It's mostly the Spoiler suit, just with a Bat logo slapped on it.
Yeah.
Well, no, because the stuff in the inside of the torso.
She has the hood. This is very reminiscent of what she was wearing in Detective, with the hood and the bottom part of the mask, so you can see her blonde hair.
Yeah. The head's very Spoiler, but I'd say the suit's more Batgirl than it is Spoiler.
No, it is.
Yeah, because you've got the bumpy kind of sides going down the suit. The yellow highlights are missing, but it's definitely very Batgirl with a Spoiler sort of head on, if you will. Which this is super exciting to me, honestly. Of course I love this. Why wouldn't I love this?
I got there and go, I'm going to be able to hear Pete be excited when he gets to that last page.
It's a glorious visual. Oh, it's very cartoony art. David Lafiente is the artist on this. And I will happily take a Steph and Cass book with this team. Give it to me. I'll read it.
I don't love the art in this, if I'm honest. I think it's
I don't
okay.
either, but it fits. It's a little bit lighter, compared to some of the other stuff that are in this book.
I really like the colors. I will say that. I love the way the colors pop.
I mean, it's sci-fi.
Yeah. But I don't know. Some of the art, I think it's a little bit over exaggerated for me in this story, and maybe it's part of maybe in like a standalone hypothetical Batgirls book, this wouldn't bother me as much, and maybe it's just in amongst all the other art in this issue, it sticks out as being the very different one, and that's why it's bothering me a bit. But I didn't love it here.
It's not totally my thing, but it fits Williamson's style here. Everything's kind of cartoony, even Henchmaster. Like I don't want to imagine what Gilliam March does to this script. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
I think the art suits the personalities of the characters, and it should be a more bubbly book. And I'm hoping that this costume change will be reflected when we see them next in Batman, maybe 100 even soon. Yeah, that this is something that they've thought out and they know is coming.
I will say, just on the costumes themselves, and again, I don't know if this is just this particular artist's rendition. I'm not massively keen on Cass's goggles.
Sure. I mean, I like them well enough, but sure.
I
They just look a
think
little
it's fine compared to the usual just black nothing.
No, they
That's
just
fair.
look a little bit bulky and off to me. But I mean, I'm nitpicking here because it's a new suit. That's what we do with new suits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's really the only change from a classic suit when you really think of it. I mean, unless I got an image up and started comparing tiny details. I mean,
There's probably, I feel like there was a touch more color, like a touch more on the cape maybe before, like a trim somewhere. But I could be just misremembering.
Yeah. No.
It's pretty close, and it is just the goggles that feel a bit bulky to me. But I mean, it's not bad. I don't hate it.
Well, I love this, so I don't care what Connor thinks.
You never care what I think, whether you love it or hate it.
That's true.
It's just, pointless sentiment.
Yes. Okay. Well, I guess I'm saying that to shut you up, so I could just say once again, I love this, and we can move on with the lives because we got Batgirl, Cass, and Batgirl Steph in their outfits, and they don't have to be called Batgirls necessarily. I'm okay. I mean, if they want to still be called Spoiler and Orphan, whatever. Like, Orphan's still kind of a weird name, admittedly, but whatever.
Her dressed as a Batgirl, though, like, it's hard for just, like...
It's weird, because you could go down the path of, okay, Babs is retiring being Batgirl, if that was the story they wanted to take for whatever reason. And then, but who do you choose to be Batgirl out of these two? Who gets to pick,
Both. Why not both?
No problem. I don't know. Spoiler still works. I feel like Cass can wear the mantle.
I don't even mean from an external perspective, DC marketing perspective. I mean, how do the characters decide, well, I get to be Batgirl? And I think having two Batgirls at the same time is confusing. There's a reason there's usually not more than one Robin at the same time.
Why is this a debate now when every single time I've talked about how there can be three Batgirls at once, this has never came up before?
I mean, I'm sure I've
you like something, before, but... Pete, and he's got to crush it for you.
Yeah, he has to try.
No, and whenever we've talked about the three Batgirls before, we've meant in spirit. I didn't realize you literally meant all three would be Batgirl at the same time.
I wasn't fussed if they were or they weren't, but I totally think they can be. I don't think it's a problem at all. But I mean,
all I know is I'll take Cass being Batgirl over Black Bat. I always thought that was a lame name.
Oh, sure.
With Red Robin. This
is going in such a weird way. I was ready to move on, but Carlo's making this a weird debate about like who gets the mantle. I don't even think
you can't have them all Batgirl. If they're in the field and you're on the comms,
forget that for a minute, right? Who even says Babs is high up the cape? Like, this is not about passing the mantle. This is about both of them reclaiming the idea of the symbol and using it, and like, doesn't matter.
I just meant hypothetically. It was a hypothetical question about the name, not the symbol.
I hope they're all called Batgirl just to annoy Connor. I honestly, at this point, I will take that.
Batgirl A, B, and C.
Oh my god, it's not that confusing. It really isn't.
I'm more upset that there's a Cass and a Cassie over in Young Justice. That's more like those two characters came out around the same time.
That is confusing as well. Mm-hmm. I'll grant you that.
No, that's so confusing. It's just like, come on, guys. Like imagine that Roy Harper was also a Richard Harper, and then you had Dick and Rick running around. Like, you have Cass and Cassie. Like, come on.
All right. We have to move on, though, to the worst story in the book. So let's talk about...
Oh, how dare you.
Let's talk about the Poison Ivy story.
I feel like that was supposed to be aimed at annoying me a little bit after that last... exchange, but
honestly, honestly, that was not about annoying anyone. I just genuinely don't like this one that much. But
what's wrong with you?
I loved it.
And I also don't get it, because Poison Ivy like kills several people here, and I feel like after the last couple of years, the whole controversy of her killing a bunch of people and Batman.
Yeah. Okay, this is where I think me and Matt need to fill Pete in on some Poison Ivy history in the last couple of years. This is mainly from the Harley and Ivy book. There was and the aftermath of Heroes in Crisis. There's actually two Ivies right now. Mm-hmm. Ivy was kind of split in two essentially when she regrew.
Well, she reabsorbed her.
Yeah. So there was two. Where there was the good one, which was basically Harley's girlfriend, and then you had the one that was pure eco-terrorist. And they kind of melded, but it's still mainly the evil one, or back to roots sort of thing.
I had no idea there was 2 poison ivies running around.
No, because there's not now. So the whole point at the end.
No, but I mean, at any point, though, Matt. I had no idea there was at any point there was 2.
You didn't listen to when we were talking about it.
Of course not. Why would I listen to you two when you're talking about some book I don't read?
Yeah. So here, I do like here that the people she does kill are Joker, people. Right? It's part of the Joker War. I can go with that. She tries to teach a lesson. The whole Queen Ivy thing, I really get behind.
Yeah.
But this is just like Connor said, and I know the pun was intended, but it is a return to her roots of, hey, this world's screwed up. I'm gonna try to fix it, and if that means killing a few humans or a dozen, then so be it. And I do like that this writer Sam Johns, which I thought was I was like, oh man, that's Geoff Johns under a pseudonym, right? It is not.
It's a pretty poor pseudonym if it was.
Yeah, right. But this is someone that Tynion is kind of like, how Snyder, brought him along. This is what Tynion's doing with Sam Johns, and because I had to look up to see what else they've worked on, and it's a lot of stuff with Tynion. And I feel they have a handle on Ivy, and what her wants and needs are going forward into 2021.
That's
a return to form, and her wearing a cool crown of thorns.
I like everything that's in this. Yeah, I like what we're doing with Ivy. I think I preferred good Ivy, so to speak, or Ivy with Harley is definitely peak Ivy. But I'm getting that in the Harley Quinn show, so I'm kind of satisfied there for the time being.
I feel there's still room for that because I feel like there is room for her to be like, okay, well, I hate all humans except for Harley.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get back to the inevitable part of this story when it happens next year will be the encounter when Harley tries to talk her down and seeing that reaction. I'm looking forward to that.
And I feel I like this development more than that, that real, to me, I would say the biggest low point for me, at least in the King run, of that weird Ivy story that set her up to Crisis. But no, I like this here, her basically bringing vengeance, and
I think
stuff has to be burned down to regrow. That is Poison Ivy.
I didn't get a lot out of this. Partly because I was like, what the hell is this characterization? I didn't just because clearly I've just not been in the loop with Poison Ivy recently. But I felt this was like a much weaker version of the Bane story, and it was essentially someone being like, okay, I need to go out and prove myself and go do,
I don't really feel that's fair.
Well, that's what it felt like to me, though. I'm saying what it felt like to me as I was reading it. And when it got to the end and it just said to be continued in 2021, I'm like, what did you give me there other than she's mad and she's coming? Like, there was nothing...
No, I will agree with that. That is my biggest complaint. This is kind of what I got at the start. A lot of these aren't really stories, they're setups. No. And this is one that I think is a good example of that. But I think the key difference between this and the Bane one, at least the way I've read it, is Bane, it's a very personal wanting to prove himself. It's like, I can be the big bad. Whereas Ivy is on a mission. It's not a personal thing that, I'm going to do the right, I'm going to prove myself to be the evil thing. It's, no, I'm going to, as she sees it, save the world.
I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but what you just described is why I like the Bane one more. It was more interesting to me because it was this personal thing. It was this thing to prove himself.
I think it comes down to how much you like Ivy. And if you're down with Ivy, and with me, it's always how is she a villain in 2020 as half the West Coast is on fire still. Australia was burning early in the year, and here she sounds an anti-hero, but she's on the other edge of it. Whereas Harley's on that edge of, I want to be good, right? I'm trying to be the hero versus Ivy going, all right, you guys are messing things up. And she says it clear in here about, I tried giving the world paradise, and now the only choice I have left is to raise hell. She's like, I've tried to play nice, but they came in here, they burned Eden down, so now I have to do what I have to do. I liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I also know I'm a self-parody, and
I also really like Laura Braga's art. Have we seen Laura Braga on Ivy before? Because it feels really familiar. I don't know if she's...
I feel we have. Let me check, because I'm sure I've looked this up before.
I know I've read something with her art on somewhere, because it's too familiar not to, and I know the name. I couldn't tell you where, because it wasn't the Harley Ivy mini, because that was all.
No, that was Lupacino.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly where it was, but it feels familiar enough. Maybe it was in one of the other anthology things that we've had in the past. But enough that I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm down for this. I'd be down for, I don't know if this is just going to be a story in Batman or in another book, or if we've got a mini coming up or what. But I'm looking forward to the story at some point.
Did you read Cycles of Life and Death?
I did, yes.
Okay. So if we're going to get another mini that's akin to that, okay. I mean, then it doesn't take up Batman, Tynion. Although maybe this is with Sam John's doing this, it makes me think it's something from Tynion because they are so close.
That would make sense, yeah.
But here we go, Laura Braga, DC.
Yeah. I actually did quite like that Cycle of Life and Death mini. I thought it was pretty solid. Well, and it set the stage for a lot of where we took Ivy for the next 5 years or so.
Well, yeah, and it really did play with her in, having this motherhood to her that wasn't what we thought.
It kind of took the traditional Mother Earth role,
right,
and made it more literal, which was kind of fun. I did enjoy that, and I'd still recommend checking it out for anyone who's interested. Just be aware that the continuity of it is a good few years ago now.
But it's Clayman art, and it's not sketchy Clayman art that we kind of got in parts of Heroes in Crisis. It's really, really good, really well told. So, man, let's see forever. Okay, so Laura Braga from Bombshells.
That'll be it, and she's definitely drawn Ivy in Bombshells. So.
Ivy and in Harley and Ivy Meet Betty and Veronica, which I read the first 2 issues of. And it was phenomenal.
She's no stranger to Ivy then.
Deceased, A Good Day to Die, #1. Wonder Woman 51. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. It's all over then. I like it.
For the love of God,
story.
Let's get back to a good story, shall we?
Not this one.
No, this one's good. This is Jim Stokoe art with Tynion.
The art. I think the story is just kind of okay.
It's not really, this is unlike the other ones. This isn't so much of a setup as it is just like a little clown hunter story to show the effect he's having on the city, which I did kind of like about it. I liked that it was like Joker sending out a mob squad as clowns to take on the clown hunter. What was it? Snap, Crackle, Pop, and Big Ed, I think were the 4 characters. And basically the clown hunter is like set a trap, and it felt like Judge Dredd meets Mad Max, and the art kind of, but in the middle of Gotham, right? That's kind of the vibe I was getting from it.
Stokoe is something else, isn't he?
Yeah, Stokoe is a really specific art style. It really spoke to me, and I think made the story much better. So, yes, despite Matt's reaction, I did think this was
I don't like the art.
Miles better than the Ivy story. Miles better.
Nah, I don't like Clown Hunter either. I think Clown Hunter is everything I don't like about Batman, and it's Red Hood adjacent. And I
like that that's the point. At least I'm assuming he's very much unsanctioned, right? And just he I think the point with Clown Hunter is he's misunderstood what Batman is, and I think that's probably going to be part of the story that we have next.
Oh,
I don't think so. I think he fully understands what Batman is, and he's taking the Red Hood track. But because he wasn't a Robin, he can get away with using a batarang to murder people. And I don't. Right. Well, I mean. The whole idea of Clown Hunter, I guess this was supposed to be his really first appearance. That you're supposed to get like shades of him in Batman, in the main book, and this. But then something happened. I think maybe with all the delays.
I think they're kind of.
I put it in his newsletter. It was just that the way people reacted to Punchline being introduced like an arc early, just in snippets. Was so positive that he decided just to try that with Clown Hunter.
Yeah, I think I like how the mystique of Clown Hunter has been built up. We were just getting little signs of him. We've been hearing in Batman that he's pissing off Punchline, that they're losing people because there's someone out there hunting clowns, and then getting this story here that kind of shows him working in full swing. No pun intended. And we get like a little tease here that his parents presumably were murdered in a Joker attack of some kind, and that's why he's become who he is. But I enjoyed this story.
I think this story is a more complete story than the Ivy one. This is the second one that I felt like a proper, like I had an actual point as a story. I think the art, I might like it a little bit better. It's kind of, they're so different, they're hard to compare. I love Stokoe's Gotham though. Like that first page is phenomenal. The detail he does.
And of course, the other
level.
Big detail here is that there's literally support for him on the streets. Like we see people in the apartments on the street cheering for him. because of what he's
what
doing.
I will say though is, I think I'm more excited for the follow up to the Ivy story than I am the follow up to this. So.
Yeah, well, this one felt less like a tease to me, even though I presume there'll be more of a Clown Hunter focused story after Joker War.
I think it's the next arc.
Yeah, I do think this is more about. This is the one that out of all the stories that felt more of a tie-in to the actual event to me, or the actual story, because this feels like, hey, here's a big part of the mythology and the context going on right now because of Joker War, which is going to lead into another story afterwards, of course.
But it's actually the Ivy one was kind of like that as well. Like, it was all to do with the, this was the follow up to what happened with Batman and Harley in Eden, right? With all that stuff in the last few issues.
Yeah, I guess.
But even then, it's a looser tie-in than this is, because we've seen Clown Hunter terrorizing Joker, basically, or his forces at least.
And I think the big thing that makes this feel like more of a tie-in to me, apart from just the character inclusion, is that this is what the city's like right now because of Joker War. So this actually has value beyond just Clown Hunter himself, is to see just how much of a messed up place the city is as a whole, or the Narrows at least is, because of Joker War. So it adds a bit of context for even just the main story, get into the big finale, show 100. So, yeah. Honestly, this might... Where do I rank this in terms of the stories in the book? I mean, obviously from a personal point of view, I love the Cass and Steph thing, and this might be overall my favourite story in the book, though. So Matt's reaction when I said I like this more than the Ivy one was quite funny to me. But
well, yeah, because
I don't think it surprised me that you liked it more than the Ivy one. And I don't think I would blame anyone for liking it more, given that it is a more complete story.
Yeah. I just don't like Clown Hunter, and I don't like this art that much. Like, it's just not my thing.
Oh man.
Jim Stokoe's great.
Yeah,
Stokoe's
cartoony.
His alien mini was phenomenal.
That was something special.
Yeah, this is wonderful stuff. But that is the final story in the book. So I guess we're at the point where we can rate the book as a whole. I think this is a pretty good collection, mostly of prologues to things that are coming up in the Bat family in 2021. How you judge that as a sort of satisfying book to buy, even just compared to, say, the tie-in issue we just had, although that wasn't an anthology book, I suppose, but some of the earlier ones were. I don't know. That's a hard thing to judge. I guess you just have to go with your gut instinct. So Matt, what are you giving Warzone out of 10?
There's certain stories that I'd want to give higher. I mean, it's pretty good. I'll give this a 7.5. Because I like the Bane story, but the art was But I really like the Batgirls story, and of course I like the Ivy one. But it's kind of, it's the Gillum March art. There we go. But yeah.
All right, Connor?
I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think it's, like, none of the stories are bad. Some of them are pretty good. But ultimately, I felt a little bit underwhelmed, dissatisfied, I guess. That I didn't get enough of a story out of the issue. It was very much just teasers and setups, and for the most part. And while some of those were enjoyable enough, I didn't really get enough out of this for what it was to be a quote-unquote good issue, which is kind of the benchmark for the 7 for me.
Yeah, it's a weird one to rate because of what it is, but I think I'll judge it slightly differently in the sense that it's more kind of a collection of trailers for stuff coming up later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as that, it's pretty good.
It's kind of weird though that you have to pay for all your trailers, isn't it?
Yeah, I know you're going to pick a part of that, but I still think this is more valid than I don't think it should have been a collection of different free stories that they give out, like free comic book based stuff. I think this is fine to charge for this. This there's nothing wrong with that. I probably give it an 8. I think I really love what the story does with Bane, even though the art's not very good. I love the Batgirl stuff, obviously. I love the last story. I think the Ridley setup is good, with really good art, even if it wasn't as satisfying on its own. The only one I didn't like was the Ivy one. I didn't get anything from that story whatsoever. I basically was just kind of reading it without barely taking any information in for 8 pages because it meant nothing to me.
I can feel Matt's rage.
There's just so much green and so much vines, on pages.
Yeah, it's Lord Braga art, so it's fine. Her Ivy's great.
Yep.
Oh dear. Which is funny because typically when it's Swamp Thing, I'm okay with it. Something about Ivy's version of the greenery.
Because you hate gingers. We all know this. It's fine.
I don't hate ginger. I love Babs. We've been talking about Babs like repeatedly in this.
You like Babs. You don't like gingers. It's different.
But I love MJ from Spider-Man. I love Wally West.
Anyways.
Plenty of gingers that I love. Not Connor, obviously, but plenty of gingers. Yeah. Plenty. All right. Wonder Woman 763, Mariko Tamaki writing with Carlo Barberi on the art. And do you know what? This gets points for being the only issue outside of my Patreon books this week that I read that wasn't oversized. It was just a regular page count.
Such a quick read in comparison. I was like, oh, it's done.
Yes, this was a weird feeling. But obviously we ended the last issue with the cliffhanger of Liar revealing herself, and this issue gives her more context that Max Lord at least seemingly doesn't know who she is or never knew about her, and that she either the first time with her abilities or certainly one of her early uses of her abilities killed her own mother by making her run into a truck on the road, and basically she's upset that Max doesn't really want to claim her, and Max actually ends up helping Wonder Woman by kind of like almost defending her from her abilities while Wonder Woman's like fighting
she blocks
the others.
it.
Yeah.
Or he blocks it for her so she can't hear what Liar is saying.
Yeah. So we see, they literally have blood on the bunny in the flashback, actually. I just got to that page. But, she actually uses her powers to turn her bunnies like magical and turns into this giant demonic looking spirit bunny thing, which is honestly, we were very, very, I don't want to say hit and miss, that's maybe a bit harsh, but we weren't necessarily always complimentary of Barberi's art. We had some downsides to it. I do think the 2-page spread where it's behind Wonder Woman and she's not noticed it yet is quite pretty.
I still don't really like Barberi's Wonder Woman, even on that page. Which is a little bit of a problem in a Wonder Woman book, I guess. But I do really like the design of the bunny thing.
So, and it is like, look out behind you, and it's this big thing. But like I say, Max sort of defends Wonder Woman from Liar's powers, and they're able to kind of deal with it and take her into custody. Which is kind of fun, because I think what this successfully did was sort of show how dangerous she is, but she kind of just like came in full force here without much of a plan, and it was only because Maxwell Lord was able to kind of like neutralize her powers they were able to take her down. I think what this successfully does is that it means that at some point later in this run she is going to be on the loose and she's going to be smarter about it, and therefore she's going to be way more dangerous, would be my guess.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm a little underwhelmed with Liar. Like I didn't think she was actually that compelling at any point. And,
it's the modern Wonder Woman villain to where she's almost too sympathetic because Diana's going to try to help her. It's kind of like why Ares, even Ares has been redeemed at this point. Like, I need some Wonder Woman characters that can just be evil at a certain point, and Diana's fine with battling them and not trying to redeem them. That's why I'm hoping there's a heel turn coming with Max. Like, I want there because he, Liar shows that reality where however she got to it, where Max remembers that Wonder Woman snapped his neck.
That's definitely going to be something in his mind going forward, because it sets up at the end that he's going to carry on working with them. Yeah,
that's the big plot. That's the big plot point of the issue, is that when the Source Wall fell, that she saw this version of the past where Wonder Woman snapped his neck, and tells Max about it, and he sees glimpses of it here. Also, the funny little beat that Wonder Woman's keeping the rabbit because the rabbit gave her an earful when she tried to get rid of it. Which
I do like that.
It's a little cute touch.
But I also like when Diana, as much as I complained about her, always being empathetic towards her villains, her saying that she kind of understands where Liar is coming from because of how she grew up to be in that shadow. Her mother's Apollo and her dad's Zeus, and she was raised to be great, and then she had to leave, and like there's always this pressure to live up to what you're supposed to.
And also, even just before that, there's the idea that she was lied to about her parents, about her father, about her birth and her upbringing. So She relates to her in a lot of ways, and maybe that's the trick here is that they're kind of like toying us with the idea that Maxwell Lord's an uneasy ally, and that Liar Liar's a villain. But it wouldn't surprise me if by the end of this, Wonder Woman redeems Liar Liar, and Maxwell Lord is like the biggest, baddest villain that he's ever been.
Yeah, and I feel like Diana does need that, and it's probably no coincidence that eventually when we get around to seeing Wonder Woman 84, like there's always Cheetah, right? She tries to redeem her, but she's always there.
It never lasts, yeah.
But it never lasts. But like the fact that we'll get an evil Max Lord by the time that movie comes out, hopefully.
Yeah, I did laugh because the adverts in the back of the issues this week are, can't wait for the movie. Read these graphic novels now to do with.
Well, you've got.
I'm like,
you've got plenty of time.
To get
you got plenty of time to read every single one in that ad.
Right now, they're claiming Christmas Day. I think they're saying is the release date right now.
We'll see.
I'll be surprised.
I'll give this an 8. I think it's pretty solid. And the Barberi art wasn't as over the top as it was in the last issue. I think it fit in really well. So yeah.
Got it.
I'll give it a 6.
Or should do. I'm also give it an 8. I think the run's been sailing pretty smoothly. I like the continuity that's been built here. I like the uneasy alliance with Max Lord. I love the neck snap kind of starting to factor into like what he knows about her and the tension that might kind of be simmering underneath the surface.
Yeah, because Diana doesn't know that she snapped his neck.
No,
that was a different her.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That stuff's fascinating. So it was also a really easy read that flowed very well.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Wonder Woman, which will take us on. Legion of Superheroes, issue 9, Brian Michael Bendis and 20 artists. So
yeah.
Give or take.
Some pretty good heavy hitters, which I tried to talk Connor into reading this, based off of Gary Frank.
He showed me one page and didn't tell me what it was. I was like, "Is that Tula Lote?" And I was like, "Oh, very nice."
So I'll just list some of the names we got here. We got David Marquez, Ryan Sook, Joe Quinones, Mike Grell, Ivan Reese, Nick Darrington, James Herron, JR, Nicole Scott, Art Adams, Jim Chung, which was very un-Jim Chung, Gary Frank, Tula Lote, Riley Rosmo, Jen Lun Yang, Kevin Nolan, Michael Fife, Jenny Frisian, Manuela Lupacino, Ryan Sook, and Mitch Gerrits. Real heavy hitters of art. And the art, when it shows up, is really good, but there's some decisions here. So this is a continuation of the trial of the Legion, where they're in trouble for basically existing and getting involved with Rimbor and the Krav General Na. But like, you have a character named Monster Boy, right? And you got Riley Rosmo. Why not have Riley Rosmo do the Monster Boy page? No, instead we get Rosmo on Triplicate Girl, and it's just doing that Kyle Rayner-esque crab. It didn't work for me on that one. Instead, who did the Monster Boy page? It was, hold on, that's what I hate about the digital comics, is going back and forth on trying to figure out what the page number is, because they don't line up exactly. I'm pretty sure it was Nick Darrington that did the Monster Boy page. You
do like Darrington.
Yeah, and it's fine, but I'm just thinking, Rosmo. And anyways, but yeah, so just over the story, we get more origins of some of the Legion here. So like we see Monster Boy's audition to where, they try to tell him, oh, we already have a morph in Chameleon Boy. He's like, yeah, but mine's a little bit different in that I support the idea of the Legion. And then you find out that some of the other members, despite not agreeing that the Legion should be there, they're still a part of it. So like that's how Wildfire ends up on the team, is he's, they realize that he's not a wild card, but like a powerhouse. And they kind of want him on the team, even though he's kind of like, yeah, but I don't like the idea of this splitting the United Planets. But, they welcome him on the team anyways. There's a lot of reckoning of the president, President Brand, and kind of her moves. And you get the fact that she's never showed her true face to anybody outside of her son. So there's still some sneaky stuff going on there. But as the trial goes on, you kind of see that the general from Rimbor is still upset that they interceded. Then it's revealed that Dream Girl has been having these or Dreamer as they're calling her here, has had these visions and they're coming true, and that's where we get to the big thing that people were losing their mind over this time is she hints about a great darkness is coming, and it's in kind of New Gods font. And for those that are unaware, when it comes to Legion history, is there's a story of the original Legion called the Great Darkness Saga, and it basically is it keeps building to this big bad, the end of times type, and it turns out to be Darkseid. The Darkseid's still hanging around in their century, and characters live and die, and it's this big huge. It's almost like a Legion crisis before crisis, and it's this big deal. So the fact that Dreamer is getting this, that there's a great darkness coming no matter what happens between the United Planets, it's almost like it kind of undercuts the Legion's stay that peace will bring it all, and this kind of is like, well, how much does RJ Brand know about this? And this is what is putting the president's plans into effect. But the Great Darkness Coming is the page I shared with Connor, because it's Tula Lotte drawing Dreamer full on gold. Like, it's really beautiful.
It is a gorgeous page. I can testify to that.
And the page before that's Gary Frank, and it's Dreamer standing up to the general and explaining about how her powers work, is that Brainiac's been recording her dreams, and that's how they're able to see this. And even they're like, wait, can you do that? Which is pretty good. But we also get Mon-El attacking the general and getting into trouble and flying off, being, super moody. Which starts to make me wonder if that he's a descendant of Connor Kent and not Jaun. Because, the early showings of Connor is he's very emo. And a lot closer to Mon-El. Seeing Yang's art was pretty cool. It's very cartoony looking. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. But it's, he does a 9-panel grid and gets to play with a different character in each of them. So it's cool. I like to see Yang there. But yeah, I don't want to say it's all over the place, but it still feels very disjointed. But yeah, so towards the end, they end up, getting the president to realize that the Legion does have a purpose, and that the planet Rimbor is chaos, and that they need to be reeled in for the good of the galaxy. And that turns out that the Legion experiment is working. So then that leads Jaun to the last page, which is done by Garrett's. Leads him to questioning, like, he's not supposed to be here. Like, he's not supposed to know about a lot of this happening. So why is he still here? Why are they allowing this? And it ends up with him and Imra kissing at the end. And she tells him that she doesn't have to hide his romantic thoughts. And it's, it's the Garrett's page, and it looks very Garrett's. There's a lot of lens flares. It looks fantastic. So if you do pick this up just for the art, it's just, there's a lot going on. And I almost wish this was just more, like I said last time, if these are little, like, interstitials of the Legion characters and a little bit more of their origins versus Bendis trying to tell a story, which kind of gets lost in all the different, artist changes. Because it took me a little bit to read this, because I kept having to go back, because when there's an artist that you don't quite recognize, like, of course you get to JRJR, and you know it, and it's, the Wildfire page, and I like Wildfire a lot, so to have to see that, I wasn't too thrilled. But yeah, so you start with Marquez, and you end with Garrett's, and it's not that bad. So, yeah. Pete, you ever going to catch up with this, or are you done with Legion?
I'm probably done.
Yeah, of course. I'm here for the long haul.
I mean,
there's a great darkness.
The long haul is probably only going to be another 4 or 5 issues, so don't worry about it.
Maybe, it does make me wondering with Jaun wondering what he's doing there and why it's still allowed, this timey-wiminess.
Because the last couple of issues I read were, I don't want to say a chorty read, but they were definitely kind of exhausting. Like
they are.
Typically, I was leaving them till the end of whatever my pile of books was. I'd get to the Bendis Legion issue. It'd be a bunch of characters that he doesn't properly introduce.
Every single week it would be, I've just got one book left, so I'll be I'll be on time, and they'd be like, oh, it's Legion. Okay, never mind. We'll be 15 minutes late.
Yep.
That sounds about right. So, I don't. I just, you know what? I'm not against Legion. I definitely, the Patreon book that I read that Talking Superman made me read was definitely pretty good. I'm definitely not against reading some Legion stuff. I just don't think this particular Bendis book on Legion is the one to start me off properly on it.
There's almost too much going on, and he is pulling from different eras and throwing them all into one. And again, I appreciate what's going on, but almost like Young Justice is too unfocused.
Mm-hmm.
These last two issues were that in a nutshell. And I don't know if it's just the art or, if we had one artist doing the trial scenes and then the other artists coming in and doing the introductions, if it would have helped.
Honestly,
there would have been some cohesion.
That was always a pretty bad idea, right? It sounds great from marketing, like look at all these all-star artists we've got, but it doesn't make for a cohesive storytelling experience, does it?
And when you're me and you have to know who's art, right? When it doesn't pop, I can't just let it go and just read it and go
constantly
back and
flicking back and forth to find out.
Like, is this Lupacino? Yeah, it is Lupacino. Because with some of the designs of the Legion characters, it's not the same. It's not the Lupacino I'm used to. But yeah, so if I'm rating this, I'm gonna give it a 7 because it's pretty good. It's just a bit, disassociative, I guess you can say, because it's all over the place, but the art's good. Like when it's good, but when it's not so good, you got Rosmo, who I'm not particularly like. It's not bad, and even the JRJ art's not bad. It's just it stops you because you're taking out that. Oh, now it's this, and again, I will forgive him for not giving Monster Boy to Rosmo, who's like, that's like his thing, is these ghastly kind of images. So yeah.
All right. Did you read it?
I did.
You did. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Sorry. May have been reading something.
Thanks for paying attention.
All right. Justice League Annual Issue 2, Robert Venditti writing with Aaron Lopresti on the art. So this is obviously a one-shot story. It does actually have one small tether to when Venditti wrote Justice League.
Very much like this would have been the next 3-issue arc on his
possibly book. Yeah,
but obviously he got taken off. Well, no, he left before that. Should clarify. That was always a little unfair there.
Bit disappointed in this. This is not the murder mystery I wanted it to be. This became something else entirely.
Yeah, it starts off as a murder mystery because there's a dead body lying in the Hall of Justice. And they're like, wait, how could this have happened? I did like the small touch, though, when it's like given the introduction boxes for each character. It intentionally doesn't use their superhero names for any of them.
Yep, it uses their real names.
Yeah, and it does it all in what they bring to the investigation, not this is their powers.
It's forensic scientist, it's the intergalactic policeman, it's not Green Lantern and Flash, it's specifically focusing on who they are. So, the crime scene stuff is alright, they're looking around, but ultimately, the issue becomes more that the Hall of Justice has all these built-in defenses for all the various supervillains. So there's built-in defenses should Zod ever show up, if Reverse Flash ever shows up. But obviously, these defenses also work on the Justice League because Zod is just the same as Superman, and Reverse Flash is the same as Flash.
Oversight here.
Yeah. So they all start kicking in at basically the same time. And the message of the story I don't dislike, which is because one of the early things that happens once this all kicks in is Barry says, "Hey, give me a batarang." Well, he says, "Give me a boomerang first," but he gets a batarang, and he's like, "Okay, we're going to use my vibration of a batarang, and then John's going to use the Green Lantern ring to drive it into the wall." And the idea being that 3 of their techniques combined will solve a problem, and that's why ultimately they're going to win, is because it's them working as a team together, mixing and matching, not just being one of separate entities kind of thing. So
yeah, right.
Nice sentiment.
And I like the idea of all the defenses being essentially this Batman's way of sneaking in Tower of Babel defenses.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's
yeah. It turns out to be Eradicator. That was the ultimate thing. It's Eradicator's head, because Eradicator was in one of the stories that Venditti did in Justice League, and his head's sitting in the lab or whatever, and it's
computer, and it's just they thought they had it contained, but clearly not.
Yeah. I will say them fighting the two robot drones in the middle was kind of fun, especially probably the moment of the issue for me was when Jaun made two pipes out of his energy to redirect their blast to each other to destroy them themselves. I thought that was a really fun idea and visual. Yeah. It was an impressive use of the Green Lantern power, I thought.
And did he really understand Green Lantern on that level?
Yeah, he does. And especially this being, okay, Jaun thinks of it, architecturally. Like, okay, how do I solve the puzzle here is how he treats it rather than just make something to smash them.
Right, which is what Guy or Hal would do.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I love them for it.
And I got a chuckle because they split up at one point. Wonder Woman was with Batman and Flash, Green Lantern, and Superman are together. And I did get a chuckle out of Barry yelling because all the Batmobiles start chasing them in the garage, but also there's a Supermobile, and Barry yells out, "Why do you even need a Supermobile? You already fly."
Yeah.
It was a different time. It's a different time, Barry.
I did love that. Now, Venditti's real good. I was sold on this being a murder mystery, and it gets away from that very quickly to the Hall of Justice is attacking. Which
it quickly becomes just the teamwork of
and it's
fighting rather than the mystery.
And
there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the murder mystery in the Hall of Justice I wanted.
It's not a murder mystery. I will say, I think it goes beyond fine and B's fun, good stuff. It never rises above being fun and good stuff. It's not an important story.
It's exactly on par with the rest of Venditti's run.
That's true.
Which is, in his defense here, I'm not knocking him. He aimed for that tone the entire time. It wasn't like he was trying to tell a big story and it was like, it's fun. He always aimed to do short 3-4 issue just fun stories, and this definitely just fits in with those, and it feels like this would have been just an arc coming up that he had, maybe if not the next one, the one after, that he'd obviously maybe started writing enough of that it was like, well, we can use this. But
I mean, it's 50 pages. This could have easily been either 2 issues with a few extras added or 3 issues with a few things trimmed to make it fit into this annual format. Like,
definitely,
that's all he would have to do. And it's full of fun little, beats with them working together. Barry running in a circle with Superman's freeze breath to try and create a hole, because Superman needs to get to the sun, because the Hall of Justice went all red sun filter.
He depleted his solar cells. So,
but then we get the big moment where him and Wonder Woman are carrying the Hall of Justice back down because Doomsday Protocol initiated, which is Doomsday is here, so let's go into the sky and blow up. to kill Doomsday.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. The interactions between the team I really liked. The tone was fun. I agree it's disappointing. It wasn't the I think we were expecting Agatha Christie murder mystery. But with the Justice League, and it wasn't that. But what it was pretty fun.
It turned out the victim was just like a fake clone that he'd put there to make them think it was a mystery. So even the answer to who the dead guy was just kind of like, okay, just nothing. Caught a book nonsense. I did like the ending where the Justice League are talking about how they all work together and this is what their strength is, but then they realize it's only the 4 of them, and they're like, wait, where's Batman? Batman's putting the Eradicator's head in a sealed. It's almost like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like
it's very Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He's the one logging it and putting it away, and I just thought that was kind of funny.
Top men,
And one of my favorite beats is actually right at the end. It's after they get the whole Justice back down, and it's Superman just on the stairs, just made it, close one. He doesn't even say anything. It's just all in his pose and just the breath of air that's coming out as he puffs his cheeks. And I'm like, oh, that's great art. That moment.
Yeah, no, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. It's not a must read by any means. It's one of these things where on a normal week 5, I would say you should pick it up because there's not a lot of books out. This is a fine one and done little fun Justice League story. What's weird is that this week 5 actually has a lot of other big books to buy, so maybe it's not essential reading. But if you liked his Justice League stories, then maybe you enjoy this too. So
yeah,
that's basically what it. And the art's solid. Lopresti, I think.
On par with what I expect from him.
Yeah, shows all the leaguers pretty well.
Yeah, it's bold, and
it's very old school, early mid 2000s style that he's got.
Yeah, where everyone feels just a little chunky. Not in a bad way, but they've got a chunkiness to them.
Yeah,
They
but
have
not
form.
not to the extent of the 90s.
No. So,
Yeah.
okay, Matt, what are you
We're talking
giving?
about McGinnis.
What are you giving the issue, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Okay, Cara?
Yeah, I actually also think McGinnis was a good comparison there, but
Yes.
I'm also going to agree with the 7.5.
What's funny is the way Matt was talking about his disappointment. I thought he was going to rate the lowest out of his.
No,
And-
it was still good. It wasn't the murder mystery. If I had read this was like in the solicits, they say, oh, the Hall of Justice turns on the Justice League. I'm like, oh,
Is it?
I don't need to read that.
Well, the point I was making is I'm giving this a straight 7 because I thought, yeah, it was fine, it was fun, it was good. And
Yeah.
I feel like I was expecting Matt to be lower than me given the way he was talking about it.
No.
So,
Matt's never lower than anyone.
that's true.
No. That's why rating is stupid.
Except in height,
Yes.
as we've established. Batman Superman Annual, Issue 1, Joshua Williamson writing with a trio of artists, Dale Eaglesham, CLayton Henry, and Gleb Melnikov. So, this is a story where we see a couple of kids fighting over who would win in the fight between Batman and Superman. And then it turns out the people looking after these kids are Batmite and Mixapitalik. And then it becomes... So, I don't know if I audibly laughed as much this week as when I got to... Because it basically builds up what the premise of the book is. And when it gets to the title page, it says, Freestyle Imp Battle. And I burst out laughing.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun, even though the story kind of was like, okay. It's the last book I had to read this week. So I was just kind of like, all right, let me get through it.
It's an easy read, though, isn't it?
It's super easy read.
I did laugh out loud when Mixie gets to tell his story on how Superman would beat Batman. This is the internet personified.
Kaboom.
Sometimes.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean...
That's it.
Yeah, this whole thing was an FU to Batman v Superman, because the whole point is that Batman and Superman, or even the imps themselves by the end, are kind of like, the reason why this isn't working is that you keep having to come up with all these convoluted reasons to make us fight, because we would never actually do this to the death. We never would. So you're having to write around so many loopholes to get us to this point.
I like that even the villains, so to speak, that Mixie and Batmite are very aware of this, and they're like, picking each other apart and going, just go with it, just let me have this one.
I love it. Freestyle Imp Battle. So Batmite tells his story first, which is, and this is where the different artists obviously come into it, is that when they're telling the stories, you get different artists.
And then there's the impression that when they tell these stories, they are actually changing reality. It's not just a story they're telling. It is physically impacting reality and doing a typical Nixie.
Yeah, so this one's called Superman, Whatever Happened to the Man Who Destroyed Everything. And it's basically that Superman, for some random... And again, it's meant to feel random, right? Is that randomly the universe just starts falling apart because Superman exists. So it's the whole point being is that Batman realizes this, and Batman has to take on Superman. So we get to this thing to the point where like Batman's like, I've got so many ways to like take you down, and there's like a montage page where it's like red sun weapons, mecha battle bat armor, magic. Doomsday formula. We got a tank made out of kryptonite and just ridiculous shit.
I love on the Doomsday formula page. He goes, none of those can finish off Superman. Batmite, wait your turn.
Yes.
This is my story.
And then he pulls out a trigger. He's like, okay, here we go, the ultimate weapon. And he turns the sun red.
Yeah.
It's just
this was my ultimate contingency plan. I launched satellites years ago to do this, and now you're only human.
And I love
they both fall to their death.
Yeah, the end of the story is like because Superman's got him in the air, they both fall to their death through all these red clouds, and he's just like, Batman wins, lol. And then Mixie's like, wait, Batman dies too? That's not winning.
Like, who cares? It's cool.
It's like, yeah, what about what the red sun does to the entire world? It's like, not the point.
Yeah, so then Mixie tells his story, which is Batman, the Dark Knight dies.
Just before we get into that, this is where some of the it's been a little bit meta before this, but this is where it gets a bit more direct. Whereas like, look, it's only 13 pages, but I was going for a event level storytelling.
Yeah. So then he's like, okay, the Dark Knight, Batman dies, and it's just Superman punching him in the chest. He's like, all right, boom, done. And that's the whole story.
And then you have Batman going, OOC. It's like what? Out of character. Superman would never just do that just because. It's like, you gotta give him a reason. Says who? Says they.
Yeah. Who's they?
Dear.
Yeah.
Yes, who's they? Yes. Internet.
Look, I don't care about reasons, but I want to see them fight for 11 pages, damn it.
So yeah, they have a whole fight. I do actually love this where they're in the Batcave, and Batman yells out, you know, Batcave authorized anti-Boy Scout, right? Just like kind of the Justice League story where there's like those protocols in place.
Yep.
And Mixie's like, no, wait, this isn't fair. Batman's in his home turf. This isn't fair. And then they just appear in the Fortress of Solitude, and Batman within the second panel just goes, Fortress, authorized anti-Boy Scout. And he's like, wait, you've not put anti-Superman tech in my own place. And then all of a sudden, like, lightning strikes him.
I also like you see Mixie's hand turning the page.
Yes.
On that, which is real nice.
That is,
I
laughed out loud when Batman said, okay, Fortress, anti-Boy Scout.
and then Superman be like, oh, two can play at that game. I stole some of your tricks too. And the statues of his parents come to life and smash Batman with the big boulder.
This entire story is basically making fun of internet nerds who go down this fighting path of who would win with Batman versus Superman. Yeah. And this particular one that Mixie's telling ends with Superman flying Batman into space and throwing him into the sun, which just happens in the art to look like a giant Mixie face.
Saying, as he's laughing, Superman wins.
And then, you know, they keep fighting, and then the toys of Batman and Superman, which the kids were playing with, are like, wait, no one won. It's like, Superman's right. And it's like, well, we would never do this. Like, this is so convoluted to make us fight. We would never ever do this. And yeah, it ends with them kind of realizing, like, hey, but look on the bright side, they care about us so much that they want us to be a part of their stories, and that's why they would never ruin our universe, because they're fans and they want us to exist, and they would do anything to be a part of our world. And then it ends with the toy versions of Mixie and Batmite being showed by the by Crypto and
Ice.
I love the beat of the toy Superman and Batman going, you know, we'd never fight. You know, look at what we had to go through. And then it was the two of you who were fighting all along. It's like, yes, it's the fanboys. We know. Yep. We're aware. Don't worry.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like to rejudicate tons of arguments online, because it's like, ultimately, unless it's people you know and it's being done in good faith, it's all a waste of time, you know? Yeah. So I do like
kind
that.
of a little bit that, you know, it is people that, you know each other and kind of having that fun argument. It's like if us on here had this sort of argument and kind of came up with stupid things, and I feel like it would go something like this, where someone would be like, it just happens for reasons. Just go with it. Stop ruining it. Just let it happen. And that feels very true to friends bickering over these stupid stories, as opposed to just the terrible side of the internet that does this.
So that was a delightful annual, and you know, Batman Superman's been a really fun book. We've all been really enjoying it, and I think this annual might even be its best issue.
It's up there.
Pretty good.
So
I did like the Roz stuff with the little tiny Kandorians coming out of the Lazarus pit. Like,
and that was Darrington art. So
yes.
Oh, that story was good. I'm not faulting it. I'm saying that this issue on its own is just a really good, fun story that's delightfully meta, and it's so much to say.
It felt like an annual. You know, the story stands on its own. You know, it doesn't. You don't need the other ones.
Which I think another one that, again, you know, this book has excelled after its opening tie-in arc of just having short little, you know, 2 to 3, 4 issue arcs. And this could have been another one of those.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is I think this fits in with what the book feels like anyway. So I think in the trades, when this is, like, you know, in between 2 of the small arcs, it's going to feel right at home. It's not going to feel like, oh, we switched to the annual, because sometimes you're reading a trade and you're like, oh, this is the annual shoved in the middle of this series of books.
Yeah, like, you could probably very easily split this into 2 issues, you know, and just be like, this is the next 2-issue arc of this book, and none of us would question it at all.
Yeah, I think it works better as 1 issue, though. I think it's funny.
I do as well. I think it's funny, but I think, you know, I don't think it would take too much effort to have made this into 2 issues.
No, because you would just end it with the end of the first story that Batmite tells and say, okay, next time, Mixie's story. You know, that's all you would do. It would be a very easy split. So, nice. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm going to give this an 8.
Connor?
Yeah, 8 from me.
I'm going to go 8.5, you know. Brought a smile to my... I'm sorry, Freestyle Imp Battle is the funniest thing I've read this week, okay? Freestyle Imp Battle, man. Alright, there you go. That's the Batman Superman annual, which will take us on, I believe, to the Patreon onslaught of books here. So every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, some of our higher tiers can make myself or Connor read a book. So there's actually 3 this week that's kind of fallen into place.
And whose fault is it that there's 3?
I don't know. You could have just not read one this week. It's fine. So I've got 2. Connor's got 1. So I'll start and then we'll alternate basically. So I'll start with the first, the new thing I'm reading, which a new patron is making me read, and that is Animal Man by Grant Morrison. So this is Animal Man issue 1, which I've never read before. I'm familiar with obviously the Lemire run on Animal Man, and obviously pops up from time to time and other things. So I was very much fascinated to dive into this, and
this is pretty early Morrison work.
And it feels it's a different era. Of course it is. I was talking earlier in one of the other books about the third person narration, just for the villain, and kind of the ominous vibe, because the villain here, who I don't really know, at least if I have seen this villain in anything else, it's escaping my memory, where there's all this ominous stuff of him walking into the city, San Diego, where the narration keeps talking about it being this jungle and how he's a beast and how everything's all this noise and confusion, and it really gives it a vibe, this vibe that he's kind of like, he's not like other people, he's not like other humans, and he's going to cause so much disruption once he starts to really... Is
this Boanga Beast, this one?
I'll take the name on this issue.
That might be an upcoming one then.
I don't think they mention. But of course, the story gets us into Buddy and his family, because I actually wasn't sure how much of a family he'd have in this old run. I wasn't sure if that was something that, he maybe got the kids later or something like that. But now his wife and kids are here, and a lot of this is him basically saying, hey, I mean, it opens with him saving a cat out of a tree and landing on his feet, because cats. But it's basically him saying, you know what, I'm going to give this superhero thing a real try now. I think I want to do this properly. And, the wife's kind of like, buddy, you kind of get into this mood every once in a while, and it always ends up just kind of going away, and you end up just sort of lounging about, and I'm the one paying the bills. Maybe you should focus on something realistic for a change. And he's like, Ellen, no, I'm serious. I want to do this. Maybe I can join the Justice League International. And she's like, well, don't just let anyone in. Like, maybe you could join like the Outsiders or something first. It's like, no, I'm done with the crappy teams. I'm going into the proper teams. And so basically ends up talking to his friend, who decides that he wants to be his agent and gets him a spot on a TV show with a comedian. And it ends up being kind of an embarrassing thing, because when they actually put it on TV, it's basically just them making fun of him, making fun of the skin tight suit, making fun of his powers, making him feel a bit foolish, and all of that. But it is successful, because he gets a call from Star Labs, who want him to investigate a break-in they've had, which is how the issue ends, because the issue ends with him going, the guy at Star Labs is kind of like, I don't really know who you are, but one of the assistants saw you on TV, and Superman's busy, so we brought you in. And this is also built up because the villain, who, I mean, it does say the Beast, so maybe it is that Beast you're talking about, Connor. I don't know, but he kills a mugger. Someone tries to mug him in one of the alleyways, and he's kind of like hallucinating. He sees like a star on the wall, and he's talking about this star, and then later on he goes to Star Labs. But this feels like an almost dare I say Terminator-esque scene? Like, obviously it's a very different context, it's a very different thing that actually happens, but the way he's in an alleyway in the trench coat, it gave me like these weird like Kyle Reese vibes. Like, I was almost expecting him to yell out, what's the date? What year? Like, I was getting like, that mood from it. But he goes to Star Labs. Buddy's called in after the fact to look into it, and essentially it ends on, imagine something from The Thing, from John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's all like monkeys or chimpanzees. And it's just this massive like creatures, and it's like, this is the cliffhanger of like, okay, what the hell is going on? Like, who is this guy and what has he done? Because at first, because the vibe I was getting from the villain, honestly, for the most part, at least from the some of the things that I've read from Spider-Man, is I was getting almost Kraven the Hunter vibes. Like the way he was talking about the city being a jungle, and like comparing the various noises and things, and saying it was like too much like distractions and the urban jungle and all that. I was getting real Kraven the Hunter vibes, but then this at the end is like, well, okay, this is completely different from anything Kraven the Hunter's ever done. So that's cool. But some of the other stuff though is that because Buddy wants to train to be a superhero, there's a whole montage in the middle where it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, and each one he's like basically training with a different animal, with his wife there. So day 1, he's swimming, and there's like a guy fishing, and he comes out of the water. Basically, he's been swimming with a fish to try and practice that. And then day 2, he's flying with with a bird, but he ends up crash landing, and then he's like running in the desert because, as he points out, ants are quite fast. So he's actually taken the powers of an ant to run. And then he's swinging from trees and whatever else. But it was a fun little. It was a very, I think, important issue 1 thing to do, because I think this really clearly says, okay, you don't know who Animal Man is, you don't know what his powers are. There's 2 things that explain what his powers are. Obviously, you've got the opening where he seems to have the agility of a cat, but you have this montage in the middle that shows him with different animals, and even has Ellen say at one point, you seem to have the powers for about 30 minutes without like a recharge or boost from them. You seem to take them for about 30 minutes, and that's when they run out. And we see that a couple of times. But we see, each of these days he's with a different animal. So it clearly shows you this, how his powers work. And then just to top it all off, when he goes to Star Labs at the end of the issue, before he sees the cliffhanger page, and he's talking to the scientist, and the scientist is asking him questions about it, he asks him, oh, do you physically transform into the animals? Kind of like Beast Boy, right? And he's like, no, it's more convenient than that. I take the skills of the animal and the powers of the animal. I don't actually take the physical form. So it clearly establishes over the course of the issue what his powers are, how they work, and even what some of the limitations are, as well as, of course, the important stuff from any start of any story where it establishes his character with his wife, with his kids. It gives you a sense of the two. I mean, I didn't even mention the kids that much. They're both there at breakfast. You get the attitude of both the kids. That the daughter's a bit younger, a bit more innocent. The brother's got the mullet, and he's a bit more.
Heck yeah, that was gonna be my first question.
Yeah, a bit more of an attitude. So it's a very spiky mullet in this one, though, I'll say. So
it's from what you said, 88, right?
It's late 80s, this book.
Yeah. It's back in that around the same time as the Doom Patrol, I want to say.
Yeah.
Same era.
Yeah.
So it's a much more straightforward Grant Morrison book. It feels much more like a traditional comic book. Which I think is good, because I'm hit and miss with Grant Morrison when he gets weird. So
yeah, it gets weird at points in the run. It's because this is still, like I say, fairly early days Morrison. It's him testing his limits at points. But a lot of the run is still fairly grounded as well, like this. A lot of animal activism in the run, animal rights stuff.
Actually, one of the key little character beats he mentions is he used to go hunting. Was it with his friend or his dad? I can't remember what he said, but he basically said that once he got the powers, he had to stop doing that because every time he killed something, he could feel it. He could sense the death of the animal.
Yeah, I think there's a point in this, but I don't know if it's already just in the first issue, but it talks about him being like vegetarian, I think, because he couldn't hack it anymore, essentially.
I mean, it makes sense. It totally makes sense. But yeah, if anything, the kids get a ginger mullet, which is terrifying, and in so many ways. I think Carlo should grow his hair out and shape it into a mullet.
That's just not going to happen.
I don't know. I think Paige would like it.
I would have to be paid pretty substantial amounts for that to happen.
Guys, you know what you have to do now.
Carl can set up a GoFundMe for his mullet.
Or as Paige gonna call it, a no-fund-me.
Well, that's why it's a GoFundMe, because it will lead to a breakup, and he'll have to it's all of a sudden he'll have to pay all the rent and all that himself. So that's why it's such a hefty GoFundMe. Let's see, it all tracks out. She mentioned what's this? Chaz Truog is the artist. Am I saying that right? The art's pretty solid. There's the odd kind of slightly off facial expression, but I do enjoy the like I said, there's a lot of spiky hair. It's kind of that era, but I do enjoy the various implementations. I think body language is a big thing here, because you got Animal Man actually shifting like how he's doing things because of the animals. But even something as simple as his daughter coming out of the kitchen, I think the walking animation, for lack of a better term, is actually kind of on point. Everyone feels like they're moving in real time, or even the villain crouched in the alleyway. Everything feels like it's got a good sense of motion to it. Yeah. So, very good. Yeah, very, very muted color palette though, which isn't necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of the scheme that it's going for. Again, it feels very of the era, but Yeah. Also, notably, I didn't even know this, but this is actually where he seems to first get his jacket that he had for a long time, because basically the guy on TV makes fun of him for having the skin tight suit. So when he gets the call from Star Labs, he shows up in costume and he's wearing this jacket. And Ellen's like, wait, what's with the jacket? And he's like, well, I feel kind of self-conscious now about the skin tight suit. So, plus it's got pockets for money and stuff, so it's convenient. And I'm like, you know what? That is the best. It's like, yes, you got pockets now. I mean, imagine.
No one will argue with that.
Imagine. I mean, it's even worse now because these days you have to have a phone on you, right? Like, what do you?
Yeah, that's why they've all got pouches.
Yeah. Well, that's why the characters have got pouches for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cable has a lot of phones.
Where's Superman putting his phone?
He doesn't need it. Lois can just say something and he'll hear it.
Yeah, same with the Signal Watch.
All right, okay.
It's fine.
I'm just saying, if we ever see like a phone-shaped sort of like bulge in his trunks, that's why, because he has to put it somewhere.
The real question is, what does Barry do? Or does he run faster than sound?
Barry has one miniaturized inside his ring.
True.
That's an idea. So no, I enjoyed the first issue. I think it did a pretty good job of all this. Actually, there's one scene here that I should mention that's kind of on its own for now. I almost forgot about it because it is so disconnected, but there's a scene where there's like a group of like 4 guys who are going on a hunting trip together, and one of them shoots down a bird. Well, they're not even at the hunting ground yet, they just shoot down a bird on the way. And they're just kind of, it's one page, just kind of setting us up, they're throwing the beer can out of the cars they're driving off. So you get the sense that they're all kind of, well, assholes, basically. And they're just killing things willy-nilly. So I assume this is going to be very relevant in the issues forthcoming. But here it's just like one little bit of setup going forward. So, no, cool. No, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking for you know what? I'm feeling very fortunate that the patrons want to give me good things to read because they want to hear my thoughts on good books.
It is a good book.
Yes, so I am delighted to have a reason to read this for everyone. So yeah, so like I say, just to emphasize that the ending is this thing-esque like chimpanzee amalgamation that's all yellow and kind of disgusting. So no, I guess that's Owlman issue 1. So Connor's doing Undiscovered Country issue 8 as his Patreon book this week.
Yeah, because at least one of our patrons is kind to me too.
One
Can't
of them.
say too much about the others, but one of them, he knows I'm a Snyder fan and a Soul fan at that. Because obviously this is both of those with Giuseppe Camuncoli and Leonardo Grassi on art. Camuncoli I've been a fan of for a while as well. Grassi is actually new to me here. Oh well. Last issue, he jumped on this second arc. But this is the second issue of this arc. We're in the second zone now, Unity. We ended last issue with, Sam Elgin just showing up again after being dead in the previous zone. And there's a lot of exposition and talk here about what he is. They're like, hey, the Destiny Man just blew your head off. We saw that. And he's like, yeah, but the American dream can't die. And I'm the spirit of America, its symbol. So there are many Sams. And they're like, dude, your blood is on my shirt from your head. What is going on? And he starts quoting Jefferson at them with, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots. He's like, just think of it that way. And one of them quite rightly points out that he missed out the ending, which is the blood of patriots and tyrants. The intentional omission of that definitely is alluding to maybe Elgin is not a good character, as it may have seemed before. But he starts explaining that, okay, things are a bit different here in Unity to Destiny. There are 13 zones, much like there were 13 original colonies playing into American history still. Each one, it turns out, runs at a different speed in time. So Destiny, which was Zone 1, ran at roughly 5 times time that was outside of America. Unity is running about 3 times the speed. So about 100 years have passed inside Zone Unity, and which is important because Elgin basically controls the silk-like defenses and just says, "Oh, you guys are safe now. I've just told it that you guys are off limits." and then constructs kind of Green Lantern-esque, kind of it just constructs a car to take them. It's a car, it's a big like Jeep style thing, and takes them to a city, a shining city of Unity, and it's quite the place. Lots of like big tall skyscrapers, like Space Needle-esque things going on. Because this is the Pacific Northwest as well. I should point out is kind of where this, in geographically in the country, would have been. So we have a lot of forest, and then this city here, and it's a bit very different, a bit bizarre. And they're like, okay, well, we'll take you to the architects, and seemingly takes them to the main people there, their house, and their parents are seemingly still alive. The graves, they're just there, and it's obviously things don't seem right here. They look like they haven't aged a day, and the two of them are like, no, this can't be right. This isn't them. And then the ominous final dialogue over it is, you have nothing to worry about in Unity. Everything is perfect. And then it cuts back to the train line that they came in on, and the Destiny Man comes through, and he's like, "No, this land is my land." Is the final thing he says, and it's very creepy. The idea here of the zones invading each other now, because he was kind of the personification of Destiny. Elgin seems to be the personification of the American spirit, America as a whole, but the unity of it. But Unity here has its own personification as well, and it's really interesting. Maybe we're going to have a bit of a war between zones coming up. I don't know, or is Destiny Man just hunting our crew in particular? Their current plan is, if they walk through all the zones, maybe they'll find one that runs at the same speed as the outside world, and from there they'll be able to leave and not have lost, potentially decades, depending on how long they're in here and how speed runs. But it's another fascinating issue of building up this mythology. I will say there is a lack of some momentum in the story. I'm feeling in these last two issues. It was okay in the last one because it was the first issue of the arc. You could have set up the new place. This one here, it feels like it advanced very little in the plot progression, or even much for the characters. It was a lot of mythology, and I'm enjoying the mythology, which is worth noting. But your mileage may vary on that. If you're here for the plot and the character drama, this issue might not be entirely to your taste, especially coming off the back of the last one, and especially as the big bombastic action at the end of the first arc. This feels like it's totally slowed down. It's really just settling into establishing some of the rules of the world, and again, really hammering home the American history and the thematic ties that's doing with the book as a whole. But I enjoyed it for that. I'm going to give it a 7.5. But again, I can see why maybe some people might like it less than that.
Cool. I think I rated mine actually. I heard you rate yours.
I've been rating all of mine, and I thought you had as well, to be honest.
I think I usually do. I just didn't this time. I just slipped my mind.
Right now,
I give Animal Man issue 1 a solid 8 out of 10. Okay, so to move on to my other Patreon book, finally catching up, because I've actually been a month behind in American Vampire for like 3 months. I keep trying to catch up and kept not been able to because of busy weeks. But finally, I'm caught up, and this is actually the issue for the month that I'm doing in the month. So this is issue 11. It's so handy that this and the last issue were a two-parter, so it actually worked out really well that I did them very close together when catching up. So if you remember, Hattie is out in the loose and looking for Pearl. Meanwhile, Pearl and Henry have just discovered vampires from the music producer dude, and a big vampire fight breaks out. There's some wonderful art here where it does this great thing. There's a 2-page layout where it's mostly 2 separate pages in terms of boxes, but there's one sort of big element in the middle where Pearl's got like the sort of, I was going to say the throat, but it's actually the cheeks. She's sort of like putting her hand in another vampire's mouth and sort of squeezing the cheeks like with her claws. But the way it's sort of angled up, it's really smart that her arm kind of directs your eye to where the next boxes start, even though there's nothing weird about the layout. Like, you're on the first page and you're going, left, left to right, and then down the page, and then you would just go up to the next page and go down that page as normal. It's the normal layout for 2 pages of comics that are back to back, but it's just this little extra thing where her arm being stretched out and holding this guy's head that's going up into the panel at the top of the next page just makes it flow really well in a way that is just so natural without even trying. But she's tearing all these vampires apart, and her narration's kind of worried that, you know, it's seeing, because this is the first time she's unleashed like this and let her vampire side fly in a long time, and is this going to like turn Henry away? Is Henry going to see this and be like, you know, I married a monster? I should probably bail out now before things get too bad. He's actually already left though. He's chasing down the music producer guy on the road. Meanwhile, we get a fun couple of sequences with Hattie as she's still sort of all disheveled and from coming out of being captive. She wanders into like a small clothing store and kills the makeup saleswoman who is there, along with the owner of the store, and is just sort of getting herself done up, hiding her scars and all the rest of it. It's classic kind of like horror villain getting themselves ready, talking about coming to see the main character. Oh, I'm coming to see you, Pearl girl. You know, it's been too long, I'm coming. But the action with the others is super exciting. It ends up in a car wreck, a big explosion from the car chase with Henry and the guy who was like basically selling blood off to the vampires. She is terrified. Pearl sees the explosion when she's like in pursuit from quite far back and is terrified, thinking that Henry might be dead. But is obviously most relieved when he's not. She gets there just in time because the guy is going to shoot him in the head with a Tommy gun, and it's kind of that like almost comical moment where she just sort of swipes him from behind and his head comes sliding off, and she says, "Hi, honey," in a really kind of fun, cheery way. But the stuff with Hattie, I think, is even more fun in this issue because she's kind of like she's going up and down the streets of this town where she expects Pearl to be, and she's in the right town. And the reason is basically that, you know, Pearl always wanted to move here. She always thought this was a nice, quiet neighborhood that she was always going to want to move to when she was done with the busy life of Hollywood and whatever. And she's got up and down the houses as a makeup saleswoman. She's got the person she killed, like all her stuff, so she's kind of pretending to be her, and just to like so she can knock on the doors and see who's where and hopefully find out where she is. And we see her, there's several implications of her killing various people in their own houses, so it's super dark, but in that bubbly kind of way that she has. And the big twist of the issue is that she gets to Pearl's house and she sees the gramophone in the window, the one that she used to listen to the records with Pearl with, and she chaps on the door and this old couple answer. And the little sort of twist here is that the Hattie stuff is actually set further ahead in time, and Pearl and Henry have actually already moved away, who, by the way, have a heartfelt kind of conversation where basically, like, they both have these fears. They admit that they both have these nightmares of him becoming a vampire, and she says she doesn't want to do it to him, and he says, look, right now I'm happy with the way things are, and I do think about it, and one day I may have to make that choice, and it'll be my choice to make, but until then, I'm happy with my life. And you know, it's kind of a sweet ending. And given that I think getting into this issue, they're heavily teasing that Hattie's coming for him, so you've got this tension building throughout the issue, and it's kind of this thing. But she's ready to like pounce when the door's being opened, but it's this old couple, and it turns out that they've already moved away somewhere to the coast, and it just ends with this, like, you know, Hattie's going to keep looking for her. She walks away with the gramophone as if maybe she killed the old couple. Again, just implying stuff. I think what makes this issue work, I like it even more than the last issue, I think because the vibe that Hattie's given off in this issue to a point is kind of, if I compare it for a second, dare I, to the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
There it is.
in which
if you remember, there's a 2-part episode in season 2 where a bunch of assassins are called in to try and kill Buffy, and one of them's this salesman, and the way she's going from door to door just kind of give me like visions of that. I got vibes of that character and the kind of the cheeriness, especially the way she's very upbeat kind of would fit into that world very easily, I think. And I kind of like that tone from all of her stuff where she's killing people left and right, but she's still this kind of like, maybe bubbly's not the right word, but very kind of young, happy-go-lucky woman who is being cheery about everything, but she's doing all this horrible stuff, and she's all about vengeance. Like, she's hunting someone. She's hunting an old friend for leaving her for dead, and yeah, so she's still out there, and it's still leaving this plot thread dangling. And I'm kind of glad actually, because there was a point like 2/3 to this issue, I thought, wait, are they really going to have this confrontation and wrap it up by the end of this issue? And I know I've read this before a long time ago, but I didn't remember. So I'm like, surely they don't wrap this up this quickly. And sure enough, they don't. It's just like, no, okay, this is a tease for later. This is a nice little 2-part story of just catching up with Pearl and Henry and what their life is like. Because they were mostly absent from the second arc. You know, we had the one little bit with them when the agents went to see them, but otherwise they were mostly absent. So this was kind of catching up with their characters from the first arc. It was a nice little catch up with them, and setting up that Hattie is still this villain that's looming, and it gives her a sense of personality that's different from just, you know, this grisly monster that some of the other villains have been. You know, like Hattie's this delightful character, you know, at face value. And Skinner's different as well, because Skinner's more this kind of, I mean, if I'm compared to Buffy characters, he's kind of more Spike than anything else. Not exactly. Like, I wouldn't say Skinner Spike is that. Skinner Sweet is that Spike, but if I'm comparing it to a character in that, I mean, it's the closest I can think of with his attitudes. Obviously, that's soulless Spike from earlier in the show, not later Spike. But no, it's an enjoyable issue. I think this is a probably another 8. I mean, it's boring to just hand out 8s for these things that are just kind of really solid, really good at what they're doing. But there's, I think the story on its own would probably just like net it a 7. But I think the art is so good in the pacing of the moments, like all those little beats I was talking about, where she sees the gramophone in the window, or the flow of the 2-page layout, or just all those things that just make it such a joy to read. It's kind of, you know, obviously, I mean, we always make the comparison that the art in a comic book is a lot like the cinematography of a movie, and I feel like this is the sort of thing where a lot of horror stories are largely elevated because of how they're shot, because that's really what builds the feeling of them. And I think the art here is what does that for American Vampire, so it kind of elevates it beyond just what the story is, even though the story's good, but the art's the extra icing on that cake. So 8 out of 10 for me. There you go. As the Patreon books.
All right.
So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week. Poor Matt's been sitting there listening to Patreon books back to back. But they all bundled up in 1 week. I'm sorry. What can I say?
Hey, I spread mine over 3 different weeks of the month.
Hey, in my defense, the Animal Man was addition like halfway through the month. I didn't know about that until quite recently.
I hear excuses.
It's not an excuse, it's just a fact.
Less excuses, more panel picking.
It's a fact. So yes, we pick our favorite panel / moment of the week. We pick our favorite art, favorite cover, and top 5 books. That's the thing. Cover threw me off there. I wasn't ready for my spiel. So Matt, we'll start with you with panel / moment.
I really want to do the Queen Ivy one, but that would make me a self-parody.
Never stopped you before.
True. But I'm going to go from Legion, and it's that Tula Lote, the Great Darkness Saga, because it really is a beautiful image.
Sure. Connor?
Yep.
I'm going to go from Multiverse's End. I'm going to go with Guy Gardner going, eat dust, you Nazi piece of shit.
Yeah, buddy.
It's a sentiment we can all get behind. I'm spoiled for choice, I think, a little bit. Like, part of me is like, Freestyle Imp Battle is a moment that will stick with me. Part of me... And my real choice is probably going to be Owlman, sort of like maniacally saying that he is the one true anti-Batman and that he will always be here. Like that moment was just such a good, inspired sort of character beat that it's hard to take anything away from that. But then there's also Steph and Cash jumping out of the clock tower with their bat logos on. So, spoil for choice is what I'm saying.
Yep.
I'll go with Owlman, but just let it be known that there was options to be had. Best cover of the week. We'll go back round the way, I suppose. I will say I'm not as big typically on the. I mean, I always like them, but I don't tend to like rate them quite as highly, and that's the Middleton Wonder Woman covers. But I do think this one is particularly lovely, so I wanted to mention that. However, I am going to be a parody and say it is the variant to Joker Warzone, which is Stephen Cass, because it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that's my pick.
Yeah,
Connor?
that's all right. Honestly, the Middleton Wonder Woman is, just head and shoulders above absolutely everything else for me this week. The only other one that I would give a shout out to is the Multiverse End variant, Captain Carrot doing the big no pose. Give me a chuckle if nothing else. But
yeah, actually, at a glance, I thought he was doing the Shawshank pose, but I mean, it's not quite that. But
yeah, it kind of looks like that.
yeah, let's see where you're coming from.
All right, Matt.
Yep, the Middleton Wonder Woman. Like, as soon as I saw that,
it's just nothing else comes close this week to
that. Clearly I disagree, but that's okay. So then, best art of the week, and we've got a lot of books here with different artists and different stories, so it's kind of a weird one. But what you got, Connor?
There's only one true answer.
On you go, Connor. What is it?
Oh, it's Fabok for Three Jokers. For every problem I have with that book, Fabok, not one of them.
Matt?
Yeah, it's Fabok, Three Jokers.
I kind of forgot about it, to be honest, which is why I didn't think it was an obvious choice this week. But now you've reminded me of it. I'm trying really hard to find a reason to argue, and I can't think of one. So yeah, it's Fabok for Three Jokers. All right, top 5 books of the week, Matt. Go.
So 1, Multiverse's End. 2 is Wonder Woman. 3 is Batman Joker Warzone. 4 is Batman Three Jokers, and 5 is the Batman Superman Annual.
Some surprising ordering there, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Batman Superman was below like Three Jokers, for example.
Yeah,
I can't help that. I gave him both 7.5s.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just surprised based off of how you spoke about them both.
I don't know. I mean, try to gauge match rating systems a fool's errand at this point.
It really is.
It is.
So, Connor, what's your top 5?
Make it up as I go, like Indiana Jones.
Multiverse End is obviously
and Scott Lobdell.
No, how dare you, sir?
Sorry, Connor. You can tell you.
Thank you. A couple of you just interrupted my list with that shite of all things.
Wasn't me.
No, that wasn't you. No, so Multiverse End, number 1, by a reasonable margin. Then the Batman Superman Annual. Then the Justice League Annual. Then Joker Warzone, and then Wonder Woman there last.
Okay. I'm also going to go with Multiverse's End at number 1. I'm probably going to go with Batman Superman Annual at number 2, and then Joker Warzone at number 3, Wonder Woman at number 4, and what have I got left?
You got Three Jokers and the Justice League Annual.
Probably Justice League Annual. The Three Jokers is just a little too. There's just too much murkiness there, and I mean, it's an interesting fight to be sure. So sometimes the fights aren't 1-to-1. You kind of you're trying to compare, the number 5 to the letter H, and how do you compare
5.
those two? Why?
Why not? It's a good number. H is H is shit on its own. What can H do on its own? 5 can do lots of things on its own.
H can be. Well,
yeah, but when you put 3 H's together, you bury everybody.
Matt with the wrestling joke that Connor will not get in any way, shape, or form.
I'm glad Pete told me that was a wrestling thing, because I was like, what am I missing?
I could have let that just sitting there for a while. So yeah, that's our picks. So yeah, I'll tell you what's coming next week then, as I always do at this point. The first proper week of books in October.
Not much.
Yeah, it's a quiet week, so expect probably a Patreon book or 2 next week, I suppose. Just that said, we do have a big issue because Batman issue 100 is oversized, of course, and that is the big finale to Joker War. We also have Justice League 54. We have Deceased Dead Planet number 4. We have Batman: The Adventure Continues issue 5. The Dreaming Waking Hours issue 3. Legend of the Swamp Thing Halloween Spectacular. So this is one of these sort of holiday themed anthology books, and I'm probably going to read that because I'm actually kind of into it. Plus,
it's a quiet week, so maybe.
Yeah, it's a quiet week. There's always a negative tone when Connor talks about these, though. It's like, I guess I might because it's a quiet week.
Oh, I mean, if that had come out on like this week, for example.
Oh, of course.
Not a chance.
No, I mean, I probably wouldn't either, but like, you have to really put in that negative tinge to it, though. You're like, oh, I guess it's quite weak.
Yeah.
All right. Also, American Vampire 1976 issue 1 is out. I will not be reading that just because I might as well just keep continuing with the Patreon slot and get to it someday.
Plus, there'll probably be delays at some point anyway.
Probably, yeah. So I get to avoid all that chaos if that's the case. So not a big number of books, but there is, I think Batman 100 and the Swamp Thing Halloween Spectacular are both oversized. So that said, though, it's still quiet overall, even with those being a bit bigger. So expect Patreon books and maybe even asking for some questions. So look out for that on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, and also send longer questions to mftvquestions@gmail.com if you want to send some there. I know there's a couple sitting in there actually waiting to be used, but do check out that. So yeah, I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are all our Patreon producers for the month. That means that you're $20 or more on patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. Some of them, of course, are the ones who are making us read books, me and Connor specifically. So you can, of course, go to Patreon. You can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. The $5 tier in particular gives you a day's early access to the show. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in that and helping support the show and all the content and keeping it all coming. You can also support us for free in simple little ways, such as sharing us on social media. Hitting the like button on YouTube is a big one. Helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Giving us a rating and review on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from, also a good way of doing it. Also, every time I say wherever you get your podcast from, I almost always say podcasts, as if I'm going
like pad thai.
Well, I was going to say like I'm from Boston or something like that. Like I'm going with the Boston pronunciation. Yeah, a podcast. Get your podcast.
Podcast. Fucking Duncan. Tell you, I don't watch SNL that much anymore, but that bit with Casey Affleck, and he might be a terrible person, but man, that Duncan spot kills me every time because it's true. Not that I know many from Duncan, but that's what I assume it's like.
I have no idea, but yeah.
Just SNL Dunkin' Donuts. Thank me later.
Sure. So this is episode 221 of Comments from the Multiverse. And I'll apologize to Matt in advance because the next month or so is like the build up to the new consoles coming out. So I feel like there's the gaming talks maybe going to sneak in a little bit over time.
That's okay. You guys have a lot to fill. I'm not here next week, remember? So
I forgot about that. All right.
Yeah, I did not remember.
I did not remember that at all. No. All right. So
I was going to tell you when we close, but now he's threatening console stuff, so I have to.
Why do you wait until we're done? Tell the audience. The audience should be told as well.
Well, sometimes I like to, you know, as an old
this is
out here.
This is that moment in the office where Michael says, you know, I would never tell this to her face, but Pam is a delightful, wonderful, sweet girl who's really smart and could accomplish anything she puts her mind to it. And Oscar's like, why wouldn't you tell that to her face? Right? That was that moment. It's like, no, let the audience know to expect that you'll be missing an episode. Oh my god.
Well, because I like to let you do heavy lifting when I'm not here. It's fun to me.
Oh god, Jesus Christ! All right, so Matt's missing.
I mean, you do heavy lifting when I am here, anyways. Yeah. So
look forward to the hour of gaming talk before the comic book talk starts next week.
Yeah.
I'm joking. There won't be an hour. I mean, I don't think there'll be
just 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a lot of news, probably not. But if it's a late news week, I can see us drifting.
There'll be no sports talk next week, so you know. It'll even out.
Dude, I love how the intros become. This is the 10-15 minutes of off topic before the.
Yeah, we actually got most of the sports stuff out of the way kind of before the show this week.
It was miserably boring, everyone. Yeah. You didn't miss anything.
Oh, no, a lot of Golden Knights talk, a lot of transfer windows, Connor explaining.
Just the differences in some of the sports. Just the cultural differences and some stuff. Yeah.
It was excruciating. So. That has been episode 221 of Comments from the Multiverse. Thank you once again for joining us and for being here and supporting us over 200 episodes of this silly thing. So, yeah, thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
All hail Queen Ivy.